Hi, welcome back guys, this is your friend, WTFW with another fiction. What if Deku reunited with Johnny Kujo and embraced one for all? Now, before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It was a beautiful day outside. Johnny couldn't help but admire the way the leaves fell from the trees, and the songs which the birds sang to each other was music to his ears. Johnny had always been fond of nature, and today he was in an even better mood than usual. This was his first day at UA High, the most prestigious hero academy in the country, if not the world, and he was going to make it count. His full name is Jonathan Noriaki Kujo, and he is the son of Jotaro Kujo, one of the most powerful stand users of all time. While his father may seem like an ordinary marine biologist, Johnny is aware of the significant role that his father played in history. Jotaro killed Dio, their family's #1 enemy, and thwarted his plans for world domination. How many kids could say that their father saved the world? Then there was his older sister, Jolene. She helped stop Dio's right-hand man, Enrico Pucci, from taking over the frickin' mercenary universe. Hell, if it weren't for her, everybody might have been mindless slaves who already know how they are going to die before it happened. Then there was his great-grandfather, Joseph Joestar, Uncle Josuk, and Uncle Giorno. Needless to say, Johnny had a great deal of pride in his family. As he was walking towards UA, Johnny couldn't help but notice the pink girl that was checking him out. If she was trying to be subtle, she wasn't doing a very good job. She was standing on the other side of the crosswalk, looking at him through the corner of her eye. Johnny knew he had inherited his father's looks. He looked practically identical, save for a few minor differences. For instance, he wasn't nearly as big as his father is. His hair was a dark shade of brown, and he had longer hair, similar to how Joseph used to wear his. However, the resemblance is there where it counts, and now Johnny has what his father refers to as the Joestar curse, which is the ability to attract unwanted romantic attention from complete strangers. In that regard, Johnny was similar to his father, and he really doesn't like all of the unwanted attention. However, he is usually only rude as a last resort, or when someone really pisses him off. In this case, the girl only seemed to be checking him out, so he didn't really mind. He did notice that she was wearing a UA uniform. Maybe she'll end up being one of his classmates. As Johnny reached the gate for the academy, his heart swelled up with a nervous excitement. This was the place where he would become a hero. This is the place where he would carry on the family legacy. Hopefully, he wouldn't have to fight any pillar men. This building is his future. Oi, you forgot something. Johnny turned around only to have a tie thrown into his face. He pulled it off to see his sister standing there with a bemused expression on her face. You're never going to be a hero if you can't take care of yourself, dumbass. Rude? Did prison harden you or what? Jolene smiled. No, fighting an evil Catholic priest with a hard-on for neon vampires did that. Johnny let out a chuckle. Where would I be without you, sis? Probably in a ditch somewhere. Hey, good luck today. You too. Thank you. Ha, I already finished school. Just go home. I'll see you later. Get lost, or I'll start coddling you. And with that, Johnny waved goodbye and headed towards the academy. Johnny walked through the halls trying to find his class. 1A. There. As he made his way towards the room, he noticed that a group of students was blocking the entrance. A brown-haired girl that kind of reminded him of Kirby was standing, pumping her fist into the air and cheering for some reason. A guy with dark blue hair was standing in the classroom, looking stiff as a board. That guy was so rigid and put together that Johnny initially thought he was the teacher. Then there was that kid with the messy mop of green hair. Wait, that is suspiciously familiar. Izuku Midoriya? Izuku turned his head towards Johnny, puzzlement evident on his features. Then his eyes widened as he realized who he was looking at. Jojo. Johnny broke into a wide grin as he made his way over to his old friend. They had been really close when they were little. He was always hanging out with Izuku and Katsuki before he had to move to America with Grandpa Joseph for safety reasons. They still kept in contact online though. It was certainly nice to finally see his friend in person after so long. You broccoli-head son of a bitch, you actually did it. Language. The blue-haired boy sputtered out, making weird chopping motions with his hand. Jojo, I can't believe it. Yeah, it looks like we're classmates too. What are the chances? The brown-haired girl looked between the two boys. Oh, are you two friends? Why, yeah, since we were kids. But Jojo moved away so. Cool. My name is Ochako Uraraka. It's nice to meet you. Kujo, Johnny Kujo. But my friends call me Jojo. The blue-haired guy spoke up. I'm Tenya Ada. Welcome to the class, Kujo. No need to be so formal. Please just call me Jojo. If you're just here to make friends, then you can leave. Johnny and the others looked back and saw what Johnny could only describe as a human potato. Slowly, the man got up from his sleeping bag and introduced himself as their homeroom teacher, Mr. Aizawa. Johnny took Aizawa's speech as an opportunity to read the room. The first thing he noticed was that Katsuki Bakugo was also a member of this class, and yet he didn't get so much as a greeting. Apparently, nothing has changed in the last 10 years. The pink girl he was earlier was also there. He later heard her name was Ashido. There was the living candy cane, Todoroni. He didn't really care. The girl sitting near him had what looked to be earphone jacks dangling from her earlobes. He had to admit that was a new one, but it was pretty unique, and they didn't look bad on her. There was an invisible girl. Wait. Was she born that way? Or did she turn invisible later? If she was born that way, how did the doctors know where she was? Perhaps he was simply thinking too much. After the rather dismal attendance call, Aizawa took them outside for the quick assessment test, which he said he would expel them if they failed. If he was testing for quirks, then Johnny already failed considering he doesn't have one. Stands aren't quirks after all. Each of his classmates went and had their turn throwing a ball using their quirks. When it came to Johnny, he had already formulated a plan. He grabbed the ball and began to breathe in. His stand has the potential to be powerful, but it is only good for ranged combat. Good thing he learned a bit of Hammond from the old man to make up for that. Johnny wound up his arm and let the ball fly. The ball flew forwards as Johnny pointed his finger at its slowly retreating form. Tusk. A little pink elephant-esque figure materialized right next to Johnny's head as his finger began to glow. Johnny lined up the shot and fired as a blog of light, but the ball in midair, sending it even further. Whoa, that guy is crazy accurate. That was pretty manly. I don't know, looks like he was showing off to me. Johnny grimaced. He was definitely showing off, of course, but he wasn't trying to make anyone look bad. He just wanted to show his classmates that he could keep up with them. He glanced in their direction. It was the red-haired guy, Kirishima, and the Pikachu-looking guy, Kaminari. They both seemed impressed. The girl with the earphone jacks, Gyro, was looking at him with a bemused expression. Guess you can't impress everyone. Oi, finger guns. Great. Now the splody boy wants to talk to him. Bakugo eyed Johnny up, his eyes showing his condescending attitude. First Deku, and now you. I don't know why you extras keep showing up, but you won't get in my way, got it? Johnny paused and looked Katsuki in the eye. I knew UA was pretty progressive, but they have truly outdone themselves. What are you talking about, idiot? Well, I mean, what? They're letting everyone in now. Ferrets can be heroes too. Why you? Listen, Izuku has been telling me what you've been doing to him. He stayed in contact with me, unlike you. Telling him to kill himself? Have you no shame? If you continue to harass him like that, I will snap your fucking neck, got it? Bakugo, you're up. Bakugo gave Johnny one last death glare that said, "This isn't over," before making his way over to the ball throw. Big surprise, he did great. Now it was Izuku's turn. Johnny was so happy his friend got into UA, he never really focused on how. How did Izuku, someone who was diagnosed quirkless, manage to get into one of the most prestigious hero schools of all time? Did he get powers some other way? Could he have a stand? Heyman. Bang. Johnny looked up in shock as the ball went soaring in the sky. Izuku's finger was a nasty shade of purple, but he was smiling through the pain towards their homeroom teacher. Yeah, Izuku has some explaining to do. The Kujo residence. Jolin looked up from the magazine. She was reading to see her brother enter the room with a puzzled expression. What's up, Johnny? Remember when we were little and I used to hang out with Izuku? Yeah, you two were inseparable. Well, turns out he's in my class. That's great, Johnny. Now you might actually have friends again. Shut up. The thing that is bothering me is that he has a quirk. He was diagnosed as quirkless just before I moved to America with Gramps. Suddenly, a massive hulk of a man entered the room. Jotaro Kujo wasn't a very subtle man. If he wanted to tell you something, he would say it right to your face. Which is exactly what he did to Johnny. All Might have it to him. Both Johnny and Jolin stared at their father with a bewildered expression. What? Sigh. Yer days guess I have to explain. One long-winded, unenthusiastic explanation later. So, my childhood friend was suddenly given one of the most powerful quirks to exist by the #1 hero, and now he is training to become the next All Might. Yes. Okay then. Jotaro took a sip of his coffee and eyed his son. It was clear that Johnny was a bit thrown off by the news. Maybe he could have put it better. Doesn't matter. He needed Johnny to do something. I've been within All Might's inner circle of sorts for 2 years, ever since we had that fight. Hold up, Jolin interrupted. You fought All Might. It was a misunderstanding. I was investigating a crime that might have been Dio related, and All Might showed up and mistook me for the man responsible. He almost got me too. But All Might can't stop time, right? Right? Anyway, I managed to convince him I was innocent after I kicked his ass, and we took the guy out together. Ever since then, I've had his trust. And that trust is now extended to you, Johnny. Me. Midoriya needs someone to have his back. A student who knows the secret of One for All, and they will help him guard it until he is ready to take All Might's place. And since you already know him. Good grief, Dad. That's a lot of responsibility you're putting on me there. I wouldn't have if I didn't believe you could handle it. Johnny smirked. Then I better get started. 6 seconds have passed. Not again. 7 seconds have passed. It's not real. This happened years ago. Then suddenly, a familiar blonde man with a face that he could only describe as pure insanity came crashing down on him, carrying a heavy-looking piece of construction equipment. But this time, his stand wouldn't come out. He had to watch as death rapidly approached him. Road roller. Jotaro jolted awake, gasping for air. He was in his bedroom, not Egypt. Dio was dead, as he should be, but that didn't make Jotaro feel any better. No matter how many times he would try to brush it off, his fateful battle with Dio has always haunted him. Jotaro got up from his bed and glanced at the clock. 12:48 a.m. Yer. Although his heart was beating out of his chest, Jotaro made his way to the kitchen in order to grab a glass of water. Jotaro would never admit it, but these nightmares always terrified him. He couldn't bring himself to admit it, because everyone expects him to be strong. If people knew just how close his armor was to cracking, that could be a disaster waiting to happen. Little did Jotaro know, but he talks in his sleep. Johnny hears everything, but he really doesn't know how to just help his father. Johnny sighed. He should probably just go back to sleep before his father catches him snooping around at 1 in the morning. After all, he had class today. Much, much later. I am here. Coming through the door like a hero. Jesus Christ. Johnny almost fell out of his chair. Hey look, it's All Might. No, it's DiGiorno. Johnny snorted. His uncle really didn't like that joke. Especially since Mistau likes to tease him with it every chance he gets. Johnny shook his head. He should probably be paying attention to All Might. Today's activity is training, All Might exclaimed as he wrote the word battle in the board. Oh hell yeah. Now Johnny could actually cut loose. Even better, he could show his classmates what he was made of. Maybe even make a few friends in the process. While he was content with Izuku, Uraraka, and Ida, he wanted to get to know all of his classmates, since there could be a point where he would have to work with all of them. Costumes. Oh, this is just getting better and better. Each case has your seat number, and you customize costume. After you change, come out to ground beta. Looking good is important, ladies and gentlemen. Because from this moment on, you all are heroes. Ground beta. Johnny came out in his costume. It consisted of a long light blue trench coat, heavily inspired by his father. 2 wrist-mounted support items that Johnny may or may not have made himself. A face mask that acted as a breathing apparatus, so he could charge up his Hammond more effectively, and fingerless gloves, because he needs his fingers exposed in order to properly use Tusk. Plus, he thinks they look cool. The trench coat was adorned with a few pins, similar to how other members of his family wears them. A pin over his heart simply read, Joe. His belt buckle is an actual horseshoe, both because the iron is a really good conductor for Hammond. Thus he could easily take it off and use it as a throwing weapon. And it symbolizes his love for horseback riding, which he used to do often back in America. Johnny considered adding a hat to his costume, but then he felt like he would be copying his father too much. He was already cutting close with the coat. He saw Izuku come out soon after him, and he had to stifle a laugh. His costume was so clearly inspired by All Might that it almost seemed as though Izuku was already giving away that he was said hero's successor. Johnny walked over to Izuku. Nice costume, Izuku. Oh, Jojo. Your costume looks great too. I like the horseshoe. Thanks. Hey, can I give you a bit of advice? Sure. Johnny leaned on close and lowered his voice. Dude, I could tell from a mile away that you're trying to look like All Might. Well, he's my idol. I know. But considering the fact that you have his quirk, don't you think the costume might be a bit of a red flag? Izuku turned a startling shade of white under his costume. Jojo, how do you know about that? Relax. My dad is friends with All Might. They wanted a student in the loop so I could help you out. Oh, that's a relief. I thought I gave it away. Yeah, well, I'm going to help prevent that. Hey, Deku? Izuku turned around and immediately became a sputtering mess as Uraraka came running up to them. I should have been more specific with my request form. My costume is a little tight. Well, you could always get it adjusted. True. Being in the hero course is the best. Johnny was confused. Why did he just head a child's voice? Then he turned around and saw what he could only describe as a purple grape-looking kid oogling Uraraka. Something told Johnny that kid was going to be trouble. Looking good, everyone. Now it is time to split you up into teams. All Might stood near a box, one by one. The students picked letters from the box, which determined which teams they would be on. Johnny found himself paired up with Takoyami, and he was going up against Gyro and Kaminari. This should be fun. The waiting room. Johnny stood with his classmates, watching the monitor. Izuku and Uraraka were about to go against Katsuki and Ida. Johnny's face didn't show it, but he was worried for Izuku. Katsuki really had it in for him, and Johnny had little doubt that he would use this moment to put Deku in his place. Kujo. Johnny turned to see Takoyami standing near him. Hi, please call me Jojo. I was wondering, since we are going to be working together, I think we should discuss our abilities so we can coordinate effectively. That's not a bad idea. Good, I'll go first. My quirk's name is Dark Shadow. It is a sentient being made of darkness, which I can somewhat control, but occasionally it misbehaves if left in the dark for too long. It is great for both offense and defense, but it is vulnerable to light. That sounds suspiciously like a stand. I get that a lot, but I can assure you, Dark Shadow is a quirk. Stand users are pretty rare after all. Well, my stand is named Tusk. Wait, you're a stand user? Yeah, my stand is kinda weak though. It isn't really much on the offensive side of things. It basically allows me to shoot my fingernails like bullets. They grow back pretty quickly, but I can't get too carried away, otherwise my fingers will cramp up, and I won't be able to move them for a while. The stand itself doesn't do anything. I see. I couldn't help but notice that you were glowing yesterday during Aizawa's test. Oh, that's Hammon. It's an ancient breathing technique that was originally used to kill vampires, although now I'm just using it so I don't have to rely solely on range's attacks. Interesting. I think we could make a good team. Yeah, can't wait to see Dark Shadow in action. The match began, so Johnny and Takoyami quickly turned their attention to the monitor. Izuku and Uraraka were sneaking through the halls of the facility, making their way towards the bomb. Johnny couldn't help but notice that Katsuki had left Ida all alone. That wasn't a good sign, not at all. Sure enough, Bakugo appeared from around a corner and attempted to blast the two heroes. But luckily Izuku tackled Uraraka to the ground in time to avoid the explosion, although it destroyed his mask. Uraraka fled to go confront Ida as Bakugo came flying at Izuku again. But this time Izuku retaliated, grabbing Bakugo's arm and slamming him down with force. Yes. The rest of the class turned towards Johnny. He just said that out loud. I'm biased, in case you didn't notice. Kurashima smiled at him. It's okay, man. I'm pretty sure everyone is rooting for Midoriya at this point. Izuku was yelling at Bakugo now. Johnny couldn't tell what he was saying, but either way he was immensely proud of his friend for finally standing up for himself. Before, Johnny was trying to maintain a neutral expression, but now he couldn't stop smiling. The fight continued, and Bakugo ended up using one of his gauntlets, despite All Might warning him to stop. Johnny could only stare in horror as Bakugo released an explosion that engulfed the entire hallway. Izuku was blown back by the explosion, but got up again soon after. The two boys began exchanging blows, with Izuku getting beat down again and again, until he finally used his quirk, blowing a hole in the ceiling and allowing Uraraka to get an advantage over Ada, securing a win for their team. Johnny had to sit down. His nerves were acting up. He had never seen Izuku fight like that before, and one thing was clear. He did not like seeing his friend hurt himself like that. But soon enough, it was his turn. The arena. Johnny and Takoyami were discussing strategy. That Kaminari guy clearly has some sort of electrical quirk, so he might be able to generate light, which might weaken your Dark Shadow. Very true. And we still don't know what Gyro is capable of, although I would imagine it would have something to do with sound. The question is, what is the best way to beat them? Johnny pondered for a moment, before a sly grin slowly came onto his face. Do you know where the pipes in this building are? Meanwhile, Kaminari and Gyro were entering the building. Upon entering, Gyro immediately stuck one of her earphone jacks into the wall. What both of them failed to notice was the little pink stand floating just above her head. She's not the only one who can spy on people. Gyro listened closely as she made out a conversation. Did you hide the bomb? Yes, it is upstairs. Good. Those idiots won't expect it to be in the bathrooms. Gyro smirked. An idiot, huh? She looked towards Kaminari, pointed upwards, and mouthed bathroom before detaching her earphone jack. Kaminari grinned as he activated his quirk and went upstairs, with Gyro following close behind. They made their way to the bathrooms. Gyro stopped again to listen, and she heard a faint ticking sound from the bathroom. Both she also heard breathing. The bomb was in there all right, but someone was waiting to ambush them. They knew I was able to hear them, so they set up an attack in the bathroom. Smart. Johnny stood at the other side of the bathroom door, just waiting for them to come in. If his trap was going to work, he needed them both to be in the room. That's when an earphone jack suddenly shot around the corner, directly at his face. Johnny quickly dodged, but the jack circled around and chased him. Oh, she was good. She knows exactly where he is, and judging from the fact that Gyro hasn't entered the room yet, she must have caught on that this is a trap. Although there was no way she could know the exact nature of the trap, only that there was one. Johnny kicked off one of the bathroom stall doors and raised it in front of him, blocking Gyro's attack. I have to admit, Kujo, you're pretty slippery, but you can't dodge forever. Johnny ran all over the room, dodging and weaving as Gyro's earphone jack chased him. No matter where he went, he had to make noise in order to avoid getting jacked. Gyro, on the other hand, was just waiting for Johnny to slip up. Suddenly, she heard what sounded like a rope snapping. Oh shit. Gyro held back a laugh. All that showboating, only to get caught in your own trap. Gyro retracted her earphone jack and made her way to the bathroom. Sure enough, Johnny's ankle was tied up in a rope, hanging suspended from the ceiling with a rather bemused expression. I'm assuming you came in here to gloat. Well, no. I wanted to see if the bomb was really in here or in the room next to us. Gyro looked to the right and saw that Johnny had tied a piece of rubble to the heater. The heater was blowing the piece of rubble, causing it to tap against the bathroom stall. That was the ticking sound that she heard. If only you didn't get cocky and abandon your partner, Kujo. You honestly could have won. With all due respect, I didn't abandon Takoyami. This is all part of the plan. Gyro cocked her head to the side. What do you mean by that? You're hanging there like a piñata about to be savaged by some toddlers. True. But I wanted to get caught. Gyro stared at the guy currently hanging from the ceiling, giving her a calm, almost bored look. Is all the blood rushing to your head or something? I don't see how getting caught like that would benefit you. Because I'm not touching the ground. Gyro knit her eyebrows together. W what? Look down, Gyro. She did just that, staring at the water that was pooling around her boots in confusion. Was there a leak? Remember who your partner is. Gyro stopped and stared at Johnny with a bewildered expression. Then her eyes widened as she got what Johnny meant. Gyro tried to bolt out of the room, but she was suddenly electrocuted. Kamine-Arechai. Johnny heard a similar cry from the room over and called out to Takoyami. You okay? Yes, I used dark shadow to grab onto the ceiling. I don't think Kaminari was expecting his attack to backfire. Johnny proceeded to fire a bullet, immediately cutting himself free. As he looked down at an unconscious Gyro, he said this. You're incredibly talented, and honestly, this whole fight might have gone much differently if you hadn't made one fatal mistake. You celebrated too early. All Might's voice booked over the speakers. Villian team wins. With that, Johnny exited the room and met up with his partner. I owe you thanks, Jojo. We would not have won if it weren't for your plan. Oh, stop it. You were the one who suggested I should trap myself, and your teamwork was on point. Takoyami smiled. It was fun working with you. I hope we can work together more often. Same here. And with that, the two left to rejoin the others as Gyro and Kaminari were being revived. Johnny was glad that his plan worked. But truthfully, if he hadn't kept Gyro busy by talking, she would most likely have caught the water on the floor earlier. She had him on the ropes, both figuratively and literally. He's lucky that Kaminari pulled through for him, albeit unintentionally. Still, it bothered him that Gyro thought he was a show-off. Oh well, Johnny was sure nothing would come of it. Kyoka had a problem, and its name started with a J. It wasn't that she hated Kujo. If anything, she respected him. The problem is how easily he defeated her. He had her trapped, and she was too stupid to realize it. He electrocuted her with her own partner for crying out loud. Kyoka looked down and began tapping her jacks together. Could she really compete with people like Kujo? Maybe she didn't belong here. Stop it. Kyoka reprimanded herself. If you didn't deserve to be here, they wouldn't have let you in. Still, Kyoka had a feeling no matter what she did, she would end up in Kujo's shadow. She doubted that people would ever take her seriously. Johnny's puff. Johnny didn't know what he did, but Gyro was avoiding him. He had intended to congratulate her on a good fight, just as he did with Kaminari, but she would always make an effort to stay away from him. Johnny didn't know if he said something wrong, but if he did, he wanted to apologize. He wasn't Bakugo after all. That's when a tall man with a chiseled face entered the room. His semi-graying hair was fused into his cap, which had a gold star embroidered on the front. His aqua-green eyes held a piercing stare as he surveyed the room. One thing was on the whole class's mind as they observed the newcomer. He looks just like Joji Kujo. Good afternoon, class. My name is Dr. Jotaro Kujo. That explains it. You can call me, or Kujo if you want. I really don't care. Johnny's hand went up. Yes, Johnny. You can still call me Dad. Johnny's hand went down. Ashido's hand went up. Yes? Ashido, Mina Ashido. You're Jojo's dad? Jotaro sighed. Isn't the resemblance obvious? Ashido is apparently oblivious to sarcasm. Well, yes, it's just. You look a little young to be his dad. I thought you were his older brother or something. I'm in my 40s. Oh. Ashido sat down, satisfied for now. Yeah, anyway. I'm going to be your biology and paranormal studies teacher. We will learn things that aren't known to the public, so I would suggest keeping your mouths shut. As for grades, there will be no preferential treatment in this class. Jotaro took this opportunity to throw a glare Johnny's way. Since when did I get preferential treatment? Johnny quipped. A small smirk appeared on his father's face. I don't remember raising a smartass. I guess it's the inner Gramps in me. Jotaro turned toward the whiteboard, but not before muttering, Damn old man, I'm gonna have a talk with you after this. Later. They had just finished voting for their class representative, and Johnny was pleased with the results. He glanced over at his broccoli-haired friend, who had turned into a stuttering mess when he found out he won the election, and had to suppress a smile. Izuku had it coming, considering all the hardship he had to go through when he was quirkless. That's why he voted for him. It could do the nerds some good. All right, you idiots, who voted for him. What, did you think anyone was going to vote for you? Zero asked. Johnny chimed in. Come on, Katsuki. You should know that rodents usually don't win elections. Shut up, Star Kid. Johnny chuckled. He loved teasing Bakugo. After everything the bastard put Izuku through, it was the least he could do. Johnny eyed the board, and to his surprise he saw that he got a vote. Who thought he would be a good fit? Lunch. So your breathing charges your ability, right? Ida questioned. Pretty much. Hammon is life energy, so the more air in my lungs, the more I can do. It was originally used to destroy vampires, but there aren't many of those left, since the Speedwagon Foundation has been destroying the masks. Johnny responded. Uraraka scratched her head. Your dad is pretty cool, Jojo, but his class is really confusing. It just seems really weird that vampires are real. Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. Ida chimed in. Johnny smirked. You'd be surprised. It's so cool that your dad is a teacher, though. What does your mom do? Uraraka asked. Izuku choked on his food. He turned to Johnny and saw his friend had a dark look on his face. You Uraraka. Jojo doesn't like talking about his mom. Uraraka went pale. Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's all right. You didn't know. If you must know, she is an internet conspiracy theorist who hates stand users. Oh, does that mean she hates me? Yep. Izuku put a hand on Johnny's shoulder. He knew how the topic of his mother bothered him. If anything, he was surprised Johnny was willing to share as much as he did with their new friends. Izuku knew that it was far from the whole story. Suddenly, alarms started blaring across the lunchroom as the four friends looked around in confusion. Someone broke into the school. This hasn't happened in my 3 years of going here, some random guy blurted out. Students began to rush towards the exit in a panic. Johnny and Izuku ended up getting smooshed together in the crowd, trying desperately not to lose each other. Jojo, are you okay? No, some asshole just punched my dick. Johnny grunted out. Now Izuku was laughing. That's when Ida flew up above the crowd, probably due to Uraraka's quirk, and he positioned himself on top of the emergency exit sign. Everyone, calm down. All eyes focused on Ida. It's just the press. There's no need to be alarmed. Johnny watched in awe as everyone miraculously calmed down. Considering how stiff the engine quirk used was, Johnny hadn't expected him to handle the situation so well. Jojo? Izuku asked. Yeah? I think Ida deserves my position. You know what, Izuku, I agree. Back in class. I'd like to give the class representative job to Ida. Ida's eyes widened. Midoriya. He handled the hallway situation really well, like a leader would. I think he deserves it more than me. Kirishima nodded. Hey, if Midoriya couches for him, I can get behind Ida. I don't really care who it is, as long as you pick one. Aizawa chimed in from the floor. Ida stood up and bowed his head. I will accept. I promise to do my best. Johnny felt like Izuku made the right choice, but he was a little disappointed that Izuku didn't keep the job. He had hoped it would have helped his friend come out of his shell, but he was content with Ida. He had a feeling that this was the start of something great. Somewhere, the sniper was sitting on the roof of a nearby building, watching the school. He watched as the young villain strutted away from the destroyed gate. Well, he wasn't watching necessarily. He was blind. After the priest died, everyone he had killed was brought back. That included the sniper. John Gallier was even angrier than before. Pucci had betrayed him, and Lord Dio was still unavenged. Jotaro Kujo and his meddlesome daughter are still alive, and now his son was training to be a hero, as if he had nothing to worry about. John Gallier would get his revenge for Lord Dio. If the Joestars thought they had bested him before. Wait till they get a load of his Manhattan transfer. Act 2. Jolene was rubbing her side. The phantom pain of what was once a stab wound was causing her a bit of trouble. If that Giorno Giovanna guy hadn't shown up, Pucci would have killed them all. She was now walking up the steps of a large mansion, with a star above its door. Her father was by her side, gazing at the huge building with a calm expression, although she was sure he was just as nervous as she was. You ready, old man? Jotaro glanced at his daughter, and she saw a glimpse of fear in his eyes. I haven't seen him since his last birthday. He might hate me like I did, yeah. But that was because Mom was lying to me for 13 years. What if he doesn't recognize me? Jolene asked. Jotaro sighed. Year days. I guess there's only one way to find out. Jolene glanced behind her and saw the blonde Italian who saved their lives looking back at her. Giorno gave Jolene a soft smile and a nod, as if to tell her that everything was going to be all right. His friend, Fugo, was chewing out Mista, yelling something about stupid superstitions. Her dad was definitely right about him. Dio may have created him, but he was by all accounts a Joestar. On the other side of the door, there was a series of rattling noises and a fountain of curse words as someone was trying to force it open. And then a loud snap. "Oh no." Jotaro shook his head. "Good grief, what did you do now? This stupid door isn't opening, and I accidentally ripped the handle off." The voice of her great-grandfather came through on the other side of the door. "Stand back, old man. I'm breaking it down." Wait, Jotaro." Star Platinum materialized by her father as the time-stopping stand reached its fist, before punching down the door like it was made of styrofoam. A bewildered Joseph Joestar stood in the doorway, staring at his grandson as though he said that he just ordered a dozen babies. "And my door. My beautiful door." Susie picked that one out. "Relax. You could just get Josuke to fix it. He's in Morio. We're in America." Jotaro and Jolin made their way into the Joestar mansion as Joseph sobbed over his front door. Jolin looked around, observing the room in wonder. An old Tommy gun was hung up over the fireplace, as well as a set of American clackers. A fedora and a long brown coat hung on the coat rack. Interestingly, there was a display case in the corner, containing a set of tarot cards, a set of earrings that resembled cherries, and an urn that had the name Iggy on it. Jotaro was staring at the display case, a sad look on his face. "Oi, Gramps, what's with all the racket?" A voice called from the top of the stairs. Jolin's heart clenched, and she found that she couldn't breathe. A teenage boy that resembled her father to a T came down the stairs, clearly looking bemused at Joseph's antics. Then his eyes met hers, and he froze. They stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity. Then the boy's attention turned to her father. He looked back and forth between them, and he broke out into a smile that immediately melted Jolin's heart. "Jolin? Dad?" Johnny asked, tears beginning to form in his eyes. Jolin had no words, so she just walked up to him and embraced him. She held her little brother as tightly as she could, and she sobbed. She felt another embrace and looked up to see that Jotaro had joined in. She couldn't see her father's face, since it was buried in his son's hair, but she could tell he was crying too. Giorno, who had been busy consoling Joseph, looked on with a small smile, touched by the tearful reunion. Joseph also noticed what was happening, and was now sobbing even harder, forgetting about the door and rushing to join the embrace, but not before pulling Giorno with him. The Joestars just sat there, enjoying each other's company. The family finally reunited. In Morio, Josuke was chilling with Okayasu and Koichi. The three had just started their own hero agency within the Speedwagon Foundation, and they were discussing who else to include. That's when he got a text from his father. It was a selfie, which the old man was terrible at, considering his thumb was blocking a majority of his face. But in the background, he saw Holly, Jotaro, Jolin, and Johnny in the background, smiling and talking to each other. The Joestar that Koichi met in Italy, Giorno Giovanna, was sheepishly smiling for the camera. Below the picture, the caption read, "We only need one more. Love you, son. Hope to see you soon." Josuke smiled, his heart warmed by the wholesome picture. He showed it to his friends, and Okayasu burst into tears as Koichi smiled and turned to Josuke. "The family is coming back together." "Yep. After we're done here, I think I might just take a flight." Back to Jolin. Jolin had never felt better. She had saved the universe and got her family back in one admittedly bizarre adventure. She looked over to her brother, who was enthusiastically having a conversation with Jotaro about becoming a hero. Only one thought remained in her mind. I am not losing him again. Present day. Rescue training was one thing. Assigned seats were another. Ida had given them a seating list, and while the class representative was just doing his job, Johnny wished he could have gotten better seating. He was next to Todoroki, which wasn't a bad thing. He didn't know the guy well enough to judge. However, Bakugo and Gyro were directly in front of him, and he was sure that both of them hated his guts. Gyro hadn't talked to him since combat training, so he was pretty sure he did something to offend her. And Katsuki, well, you could never really tell with him. Needless to say, Johnny felt like he was in a hostile environment. Izuku wasn't that far away, and he was sitting with Asui, the girl with the frog quirk. They seemed to be having a pretty decent conversation. In fact, the whole class was socializing with each other, aside from the people Johnny was sitting with. Katsuki was just staring out the window. Gyro had one of her earphone jacks plugged into her phone, and Todoroki was straight up sleeping. Johnny just couldn't help but observe that Gyro was listening to music with her earphone jacks. Honestly, if Johnny had a quirk, he would want it to be like hers. Your quirk is kind of like All Might's. Johnny's heart stopped, and he quickly glanced at Izuku and saw the one for all used stammering out an incoherent response. Quickly, Johnny's mind raced through possible excuses, and he turned towards his friend to see that Izuku was giving him a worried look. Luckily, Kirishima chimed in. Yeah, but All Might doesn't break his bones when he uses his. Kirishima, you're a lifesaver. The bus had pulled to a stop, and the students filtered out towards the huge, dome-like building that stood before them. The Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or the USJ for short. As he disembarked, Johnny caught Gyro shooting him a look. It wasn't a mean look or anything, more of a hesitant, almost weary look, as if she didn't trust him. Oh wait, she probably didn't. As the Space Hero 13 lead them into the building, much to Uraraka's fangirling, the future heroes stopped at a cliff face. Johnny caught Gyro looking at him again, and this time she saw him. She quickly averted her eyes, but the jig was up. Johnny turned to her. Look, if you have a problem, just say it. You clearly don't like me, so you may as well let me have it. Gyro glared right back at him. Why don't you mind your own damn business? It is my business when you hate me for some reason. What did I do? It's not like I stomped on a kitten in front of you or something. So why can't you just tell me the reason instead of being a dick? Johnny snapped. Gyro's eye twitched. I'm the dick. You made a fool out of me in front or our entire class. Well, I didn't mean to. Will you two shut up? Katsuki barked. Just then, a massive amount of people came pouring in from several sides of the facility. A whole army of what looked to be villains was now occupying the dome. Are those fake villains designed to test us? No, they're real. Their homeroom teacher responded with a dark tone in his voice. Johnny felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Villain, here, in UA, of all places. Johnny's dread only got worse as a black shadow materialized in front of the bewildered class, introducing itself as Kurogiri, and announced that the villains were here to kill All Might. If they came all the way to one of the most guarded places in the country with the intent to kill the #1 hero, they must have a plan, which means they could very well be capable of killing All Might. Just then, Bakugo and Kirishima rushed the villain. Johnny called out to them. Don't you idiots. We don't know what he's. Just then, the black mist enveloped him and Johnny couldn't see anything. Before he knew it, he was face to face with a bunch of rocks. Capable of. He was alone. Like, alone. No one in sight. Not his classmates, nor his teachers. It was just him. Or so he thought. So this is Jotaro's brat. Johnny whirled around to find the source of the annoying, nasally voice, and found a man staring right back at him. The man had long black hair and a snooty expression on his face. He was wearing a dark purple top hat and a dark purple coat. The most important detail about the man, though, was that he was pointing a gun right at Johnny. Pathetic. I expected a challenge, not the pipsqueak Joestar. The man continued haughtily. I may be smaller than my father, but I'll beat yours like he would. Johnny replied. Ah, the mouse fancies himself a lion. My name is Magenta, and I was once under the employ of Lord Dio. That's a stupid name. Johnny grinned, taking delight in watching his adversary's overconfident expression turn into one of fury. And that's a stupid coat. What are you, a mini Jotaro? From what I've observed, you aren't anywhere near stopping time. Snidely responded. You're lecturing me on my fashion choice? The one in 890s called. They want their oversized top hat back. Started to turn even more purple than he already was. He had come here to kill All Might, not to be roasted by a child. You know what, you little bitch? Killing you myself isn't even worth it. Minions, kill him. Just then a bunch of villains came raining down on Johnny, all of them armed to the teeth. There was only one thing Johnny could do in this situation. He bolted. Nidrandale, he screamed as he ran for the hills. The villains just stood there, confused as to why the future hero suddenly started panicking. Magenta, on the other hand, was furious. Are we blind? Chase him, the villain screamed. The rest of the villains began to give chase to the young Joestar, while Magenta remained close behind them. Lord Dio would have been disappointed if he had lost to a kid, especially a Joestar. Up the hills, Kyoka swung the sword that Yarazu had given her, barely blocking the villain's blow. Momo kicked out, supporting her classmate while sending the villain flying. Kaminari was just kind of standing there. Come on, can you make a weapon for me too? I'm kind of defenseless over here. Kaminari whined. Kyoka didn't even bother looking at him. You're the one with electrical powers. Just zap them or something. Were you even paying attention during combat training? Kyoka grimaced. No, she was too busy getting her ass handed to her on a silver platter. If I try to use my quirk, I'll just electrocute everyone around me, including you guys. I'm counting on you too. Kyoka eyed Kaminari. You're a real damsel in distress, aren't you? Wah. Fine, I'll use you as a human stun gun, Kyoka cried, booting Kaminari into one of the villains. Smart move. Kyoka turned to see Kujo on his knees, panting heavily. I was left all alone, with a bunch of villains. It took me ages to find you guys. Johnny managed to get out. Let me guess, you beat all of them. Kyoka sarcastically responded. What do you think I am? No, we are about to have company. Sure enough, a small army of villains made their way over to the 4 students, being led by an enraged magician-looking guy. Kill the others, but Kujo is mine. Kyoka glanced down at Johnny and was surprised to see a grim look on his face. The look the young Joestar was giving the villain was intense, so Kyoka could tell there was some history between the two. Any particular reason that villain wants to kill you specifically? Momo asked, smacking one of Magenta's goons with her bow staff. He used to work for an old enemy of my father, and I may have made fun of his appearance. Johnny explained, while firing bullets into their attackers. Honestly, with a get-up like that, you'd think he would be used to it. Kyoka responded, while using the speakers in her boots to generate a sound wave, causing multiple villains to drop to their knees clutching their ears. I heard that you floppy-eared baiga. Magenta was caught off guard when Momo kicked him directly in the nose, breaking it instantly. Johnny gave Momo a thumbs up. Nice kick. I could hear his nose crack from here. Momo returned it with a smile. You're doing quite well yourself, Jojo. Funny how he didn't compliment me, Kyoka thought to herself. While their group was holding their own, it became apparent that they were outnumbered. Johnny turned to his classmates. Any ideas? He said as he unloaded a few nail bullets into a pork-looking villain. Kyoka raised an eyebrow. I thought you usually had a plan. I'm not Einstein, Gyro. Just because I came up with one clever plan doesn't mean I'm going over how to beat everybody 247. I have an idea, but it's risky. Momo chimed in. I'll need you guys to cover me, though. All right, I think we should go with her plan. Just like that? Kyoka questioned. Yes, because she's probably the smartest kid in our class, Johnny said. Momo flushed in embarrassment. I'm sure that is not the case, although I appreciate that you think so. Johnny threw a roll around one William's neck and reeled him in for a hit, clotheslining him with a Hammond-filled right hook. He noticed a villain with an extendable arm carrying a large boulder, intending to crush Kaminari, who was now electrocuting a few villains. Gyro unleashed another sound wave, destroying the boulder and causing Mr. Fantastic to join the other villains being electrocuted. It is ready. It takes me a while to make something this big. Momo ran up to Johnny and Kyoka, and the back of her costume began to stretch out, until a massive blanket covered the three heroes. Johnny was impressed. I see. Great idea, Yaorazu. An insulated sheet protects us from electrical hazards. To ahead and let loose Kaminari. Kaminari grinned once he realized what Momo meant. All right. Now I don't have to worry about hurting my friends. You guys are fried. And with that, Kaminari let loose, zapping every villain in the area. Magenta was regaining consciousness after he was kicked in the face. And to his horror, he saw a wall of electricity heading his way. Then he smiled and calmly kneeled down, placing his hands on the ground. Johnny was cooped up inside the blanket with the two girls. Now, I'm worried about the rest of our class. We should go look for them, Momo stated. I'm sure they're fine. Oh my god. Johnny quickly turned away. Kujo, don't look at her, Kyoka screamed at him. Making the blanket had the unintended side effect of completely destroying the top half of her costume and exposing her torso for the world to see. Johnny quickly crawled out from under the blanket, muttering like Izuku would, although he was just repeating the words, I'm sorry, over and over again. Momo and Kyoka soon emerged from under the blanket, as Momo had already made a new costume. Jojo, it's okay. I know it was an accident. You can look now. Johnny warily turned his head and sighed in relief. Warn me next time, will you? Just then a shot rang out, and a bullet brushed by Kaminari's hair and embedded itself into the rocks above Johnny's head. The short-circuited Kaminari barely seemed to notice just how close he got to death, so Johnny ran up and tackled him to ground, wincing as another bullet came dangerously close. He looked up and saw Magenta advancing on them, gun in hand. Immediately, Johnny rolled to the side and returned fire with his nail bullets, while Momo had created an iron shield that she and Kyoka were currently taking cover behind, and simply kneeled down. And Johnny watched as a blue force field of sorts materialized around the villain. Johnny's bullets bounced harmlessly off. A blue figure was wrapped around M's shoulder, and Johnny realized something. This guy worked for Dio, or course he was a stand user. The villain smirked. You may have defeated my army, but they were all incompetent fools. Now the real show has begun. Die, children, die. Johnny, recognizing the threat, quickly ducked behind Momo's shield, dragging Kaminari with him, as several more bullets make impact with it. Momo gritted her teeth as she struggled to keep her balance. Why is he glowing? Kyoka asked. He's a stand user. His stand is protecting him from our attacks, although it appears as though he has to stay still in order to activate his ability. Kyoka looked towards the villain and saw that he was reloading his gun. Taking the opportunity, she stepped around the shield and unleashed another sound attack, only to realize that the villain was pointing the gun right at her. He wasn't reloading. He was trying to draw her out. With a victorious smile, Magenta fired. Kyoka could only watch helplessly as time seemed to slow down, and the bullet came straight for her face. She was about to die. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have been a musician after all. That's when she felt an impact, not in her head, but in her side. She felt a pair of strong arms wrap around her as she fell to the ground. She watched as the bullet glided harmlessly over her head and hit the wall behind them. Kyoka turned her head and saw that her rescuer was Johnny. He had an expression that she had never seen on him before. It was fear. Johnny Kujo, the guy who beat her so easily during combat training, the same guy that was oozing with confidence since she met him, was on the verge of having a panic attack. It was at that moment Kyoka realized that she was an idiot. She had let her own insecurities prevent her from seeing Johnny for what he really was. A kid trying to be a hero, just like her. He was scared, because he cared about her safety, despite the attitude she was giving him earlier. Stupid. I'm frickin' pathetic. Kyoka thought to herself as she plugged her earphone jacks into the ground. This caused the ground below them to shake, causing the villain, who had been aiming to finish the two teens off, to stumble, throwing off his aim and causing him to move in an effort to regain his balance, deactivating his stand. Johnny didn't waste any time. He fired multiple nail bullets in Magenta's direction, 2 hitting the villain in the shoulder and 1 in his leg. Blood spurting from MM's wounds, Dio's former servant stumbled backwards, crying out as he fell over the side of a cliff. Momo dropped her shield and immediately ran to check on her friends. Johnny was breathing heavily, while Kyoka looked to be on the verge of tears, but they were both unharmed. Just then, a massive creature hurtled towards the ceiling, crashing through the roof of the building, indicating that All Might had arrived and kicked somebody's ass. Soon, the other pro heroes arrived, and the villains fled. The Usji incident was over. Later. You sure you guys are okay? Johnny asked, concerned. Don't worry, young Kujo, everything is fine. Toshinori Yagi, or All Might, responded. Johnny had never seen the hero's deflated form before. Honestly, it felt kind of surreal. Izuku gave his friend a reassuring smile. Johnny returned it. Well, I better join the rest of the class before someone gets suspicious. All right, thanks Jojo. Johnny exited the room, only to be crushed in a bear hug. It was Jolin, who came rushing to the school after she heard what happened. Don't you scare me like that again, you little shit. Yeah, because it was my fault one of Dio's servants was running around on campus. Shut up. So you know how scary that was for me. Johnny sighed. Yeah. I'm sorry I scared you, Jolin. I'll try to be more careful. Excuse me? Someone said from behind the siblings. It was Gyro. Can I talk to Jojo for a minute? Johnny raised an eyebrow. This was the first time she actually used his nickname. Jolin nodded and walked over to join her father, who was discussing the attack with Midnight. Gyro began to tap her earphone jacks together, clearly nervous. I just wanted to apologize. I haven't been the nicest to you, and I'm sorry. Johnny patiently listened as Joel continued. I never hated you or anything. It's just, you're so much better than me in a lot of things. You made a fool out of me in front of the entire class. Johnny's eyes widened as he put 2 and 2 together. He made Gyro feel like she couldn't measure up. I'm not as talented as you are. Gyro continued, her eyes pointing towards the floor in shame. You can do so much. You're the perfect hero. That's why I voted for you. Wait, that was you. I felt like you would be a good fit. You're so much better than me. I'm just the girl with the goofy ears. Stop. Gyro looked up at Johnny. Tears were beginning to well up in her eyes. You need to stop talking about yourself like that. You may think you don't measure up, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Those goofy ears of yours almost kicked my ass. What do you mean? You beat me so easily, Gyro stammered out. Johnny shook his head. Remember when I said getting caught in the trap was all part of the plan? Well, when you were chasing me around the bathroom with those ears of yours, and I panicked. I got myself trapped too early, and the only reason I won is because I bluffed my way out. You genuinely caught me off guard, so don't sell yourself short. Gyro blinked. You mean, if I hadn't hesitated, I would have been toast? Johnny shrugged. Johnny walked up to Gyro and pointed at her. I'm going to ask you to do two things, and I want you to seriously consider doing them. Gyro nodded. Okay, what are they? 1. You need to stop being so insecure about yourself. You are incredibly capable. I think we might have died today if you hadn't caused that villain to stumble. 2. You and I are going to be friends from now on. I think we worked well together. You got that? Gyro smiled. I'm going to struggle with that first one, but I can definitely do the second one. Johnny returned the smile. Well, that's better than nothing. See you next class, Gyro. See you, Jojo. And with that, Johnny decided his next move should be saving his father from a certain R-rated hero. Come on, Jotaro. You're going to return my affections sooner or later. It's not going to happen, Nimiri. Jotaro replied. Midnight pouted. Just one date, one. That's all I ask. I'm older than you. Only by a decade. A decade and a year. Oi, Dad, can we go home? Johnny interrupted. See, my son wants to go home. Midnight growled. One day I'll get you to say yes, Jotaro, one day. Jotaro turned away. I doubt it. With that, Jotaro walked out of the building, with his son following behind. Johnny stood at the base of a large lighting, a big wheel on the front of it. He was at the Speedwagon Foundation headquarters in Mustafu. He was there because he apparently had a visitor. Johnny made his way through the lobby, nodding at one of the workers, and entered the elevator. Johnny looked at his phone while he waited for his floor and saw that he had a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Gyro. I asked your sister for your number before you left the other day. Johnny, cool. Gyro, cool. That's it. Johnny. Well, what else am I supposed to say? Gyro. I'm so glad we're friends. Let's get pedicures together. Gyro. I don't know. Something better than cool. You should at least put a bit more effort into it. Johnny smirked. Johnny. I'm meeting with my uncle right now, but it's nice hearing from you. Gyro. Ditto. Johnny. Ditto. That's it. You should at least put a bit more effort into it. Gyro. Smartass. Johnny chuckled as he put his phone away. He was glad that he was on better terms with Gyro. He really needed to hang out with more people besides Izuku. The elevator came to a stop at the 5th floor, and the doors opened. Johnny made his way to a room that resembled a greenhouse. A blond man was tending to the plants. His hair had 3 curls in the front and a long ponytail in the back. He had a black suit with a chest window in the middle, with green accents, as well as 2 green brooches that resembled ladybugs. The man had green eyes that shined with a gentle kindness, yet Johnny knew that they could switch to something much darker in a different situation. Johnny, it's been too long. Hey, Uncle Giorno. Giorno Giovanna got up and brushed some dirt off. Did you know they had a garden here? I have to admit, I'm quite impressed with how well they are taking care of it. It's even more impressive since they can't grow them instantaneously, right? Johnny asked with a smile. Giorno eyed his nephew. Don't sass me. Johnny chuckled. So, what brings you to Japan? The mafia boss sighed. Well, when I heard my nephew was involved in a massive villain attack, I was somewhat concerned. I mostly just came to check up on you. Well, I'm fine. Those villains weren't, though. Our class messed them up. Giorno raised an eyebrow. I don't think you understand just how much danger you were actually in. Johnny shook his head. No, I do. One of the villains that came after us used to work for Dio. Giorno frowned. You're talking about Magenta, right? Johnny nodded. He almost killed me and my friends, but we managed to defeat him. The Italian shook his head. He escaped. We don't know where he is. He's pretty good at covering his tracks. Damn it. Giorno motioned with his head, indicating that he wanted Johnny to follow him. Come on, I'll take you out to eat, my treat. Johnny nodded and followed his uncle. A Starbucks or something, I don't know. If there is one thing that you and I have in common, Johnny, it's that we both have a shitty mom, Giorno said. Johnny frowned, his eyes shifting down towards his drink. Giorno wouldn't have brought up their mothers if he wasn't serious. It was a sensitive topic for both of them, and the fact that he had brought it up meant that whatever he had to say had to be important. The thing is, you have a loving father, and a sister too. Cares for you more than he would like to admit. And Josuke would gladly take a bullet for you. I had none of that growing up. My mother neglected me, my stepfather beat me, and my father, well, he's been dead for over a century. It didn't take much for Johnny to know that Giorno wasn't talking about Dio. So when I learned that I had a family, I had flesh and blood relatives who had gone through similar experiences, for the first time in my life I felt like you guys accepted me, even though I came from him, and now I finally know what being in a family truly means. I love you, Johnny, and if something ever happened to you, or to any of our family members for that matter, I don't know what I would do. I don't want to lose this. Johnny had never heard his uncle be so upfront about his feelings before. The Uschi incident must have really scared him if he was pouring his heart out like this. I'm sorry, Uncle Giorno. I really didn't mean to scare you like that. You've already lost so much, Buxarati, Narancia, Abashio. I don't want to cause you any more pain. I promise I'll be more careful. Giorno bowed his head, taking time to take a sip from his caramel macchiato. There's no need to apologize, Johnny. It's not like you were looking for a fight or anything. I just felt like I needed to explain why I felt the need to come here to check up on you. Johnny smiled. I appreciate it, I really do. Hey, is that Jojo? Who's that cutie with him? Johnny turned his head to see Ishido and Hagakure looking in his direction. Giorno raised an eyebrow. I take it those are your classmates. Johnny nodded. Ishido made her way over to the two Joestars, while Hagakure waited for their orders. Hey, how's my boyfriend doing? Johnny wasn't amused. Giorno looked perplexed, before Mina began to giggle. Relax, I'm just teasing you. Johnny put a hand on his forehead. Yer. Mina was still chuckling as Giorno got up. I'm going to the bathroom, Johnny. I'll be right back. Wait, don't leave me alone with her. I'll be right back. Johnny put his head on the table. Sorry, Jojo, looks like you're stuck with me now, Mina grinned. This is hell, I'm in hell. Johnny muttered. Mina sat down in Giorno's spot. I'm guessing that was another family member. Johnny lifted his head. Yeah, my uncle. Mina pounded her fist on the table. Why is it that every member of your family is so cute? I don't know. Maybe I have a common ancestor with a Greek god or something. Mina shook her head, bewildered, before she suddenly had a serious expression. Hey, Yaemomo said that you were pretty shaken up during the Uschi. Are you okay? Johnny sighed. I'm fine. I was more worried about the others than myself. And when that villain almost shot Kaminari and Gyro, I guess I had a bit of a panic attack. Mina nodded. That sounds really scary. I'm just glad everyone's all right. Agreed. Mina rubbed her head. Well, I gotta go, but I'm glad you're doing better. She began to walk towards the door, reuniting with Hagakure. Ashido. Mina turned to look at Johnny. Thank you, despite all the needless flirting. You're a good friend. Mina smiled. See you next class, Jojo. Johnny waved as his friends departed. Then he noticed that his uncle was hiding in the corner of the bathroom. Johnny narrowed his eyes, indicating to Giorno that he had seen him. His uncle had a small smile on his face as he made his way back to the table. Sorry, I wanted to get a look at your friends. It just eases my conscience, knowing that even if you are in danger, you'll have people watching your back. Johnny smirked. You're getting soft in your old age. I'm 27. Jean Gallier sat in a dark, dingy cellar, waiting for a phone call. He had a contact who could provide him with the resources to put his plan into action. He was going to get revenge on the Joestars for killing Lord Dio, and anyone who got in his way was going to get a bullet right between the eyes. The phone rang. Jean Gallier reached for it and picked it up. "Hello? It's me. I figured as much. You needed men, right? They are on their way. Thank you. Your help is much appreciated. Remember, after you are done with your mission, you promised to help me with mine. I am a man of my word. And congratulations on winning the election." "Thank you. I wish you luck." Johnny. Johnny was lying in bed, fading in and out of sleep. He had the strangest dream. He had dreamt that he was in a fight with a villain, and for some reason he couldn't move his legs. It wasn't a very comfortable feeling. He couldn't run away or anything. Oh well, dreams are dreams. Suddenly, something went taut around his foot, and he was yanked out of bed like a rag doll. "God, what the foo?" Johnny noticed that a string was tied around his foot, and he could hear chuckling from the hallway. "Jolin!" Johnny yelled. His sister appeared in the doorway, looking a little too full of herself. "You could have woken me up like a normal person, instead of yanking me out of bed with stone free." "Yeah, but then I would miss that stupid look on your face." Jolin grinned. Johnny groaned and got to his feet, brushing himself off. His star-patterned pajamas were now all messed up. "I assume this is a special occasion, since you have barged your way into my room." "Yeah, you're going out," Jolin stated matter-of-factly. Johnny only stared at his sister in confusion. "Yer dawa. Do I have to write it down? I'm making you socialize." "I socialize with people." "Yeah, and I'm dating Anasui," Jolin retorted. "Anyway, I may have contacted a few people and arranged a meeting, and you're expected to show up." Johnny glared at his sister. "So you went behind my back and got these people together, and now you are forcing me to hang out with them, without even taking my schedule into account." Jolin cocked her head. "And just what were you planning to do today?" Johnny remained silent. "Caught you, bitch." Jolin smirked. "Get dressed. Your friends are already getting ready." Johnny sighed. Yer. Subway station. Johnny was sitting next to a neckbeard. The guy was just staring at his phone, breathing heavily, and needless to say Johnny was feeling a bit uncomfortable. "Hey dude." "Great." Now the guy was talking to him. The guy turned his phone towards Johnny, going even further into the antisocial Joestar's personal space. "Don't you think this girl is hot?" Johnny briefly glanced at the phone, and was surprised to see a picture of Momo. She was next to a couple that appeared to be her parents. Her profile was showing, and the way the picture was taken made it clear that she was unaware that she was being photographed. Johnny didn't respond. He just ignored the man as he was brimming in a quiet fury. Who does this guy think he is, taking pictures of one of his friends like that? "Hey, I'm talking to you." "I know. But since you are a degenerate, I've elected to ignore you." The human greaseball furrowed his brow. "Hey man, I just asked you a question. And I just gave you an answer. Shit for brains. You're not being very nice." Johnny was so close to snapping, he could hear the blood rushing to his face. If this guy kept this up, Johnny might just commit assault and battery. "Hey, Jojo, there's a better seat over here." Johnny turned to see a certain purple-haired classmate, waving him over. "Gyro, you're a lifesaver." Johnny gave the guy the finger before making his way over to her. Gyro beamed at him as he sat down. "Dude, you looked like you were about to pop a vein. What did that guy do?" Johnny proceeded to explain why he was about to ride nail bullets into the guy's crotch, and soon Gyro was livid too. "That asshole, she's a minor. You should have kicked his ass." "If I did, I would make our school look bad, and I'd probably get expelled." Johnny muttered. "True." Gyro nodded. She began to tap her jacks together. So, your sister is pretty nice. You're one of the people she called? Johnny asked. Yeah, she said that you were in dire need of social interaction. Gyro chuckled. Considering how hard you work in class, it was surprising to learn that you were such a bum. Excuse me, a bum. You heard me, Joel said, before throwing him a mischievous glance. Star pajamas, she muttered. Johnny turned beet red. How much did she tell you? Gyro burst out laughing, taking enjoyment in seeing the normally collected Joestar get all flustered. Johnny just couldn't stay mad, and he eventually joined in, the two sharing a much-needed laugh. Gyro wiped away a tear before turning to Johnny. Hey, I never got to thank you. For what? For saving me. I almost died after all. Johnny shook his head. Don't worry about it. That's what heroes do, right? Gyro nodded. Next time, I'm saving you. Need to even the score, you know? That's the spirit. Johnny smiled. Jojo. Both Johnny and Gyro turned to see Izuku running up to them. Oh hey Izuku. Midoriya. Uraraka and Ida followed the green bean, each of them enthusiastically greeting the other two. They all made their way to the movie theater, where Johnny was surprised to see Okayasu Nijimura in line, saving furiously at him. Okayasu, what are you doing here? I'm your chauffeur. Chauffeur? Yeah, that. Jolin paid me. Uraraka leaned in and whispered in Johnny's ear. He's been talking about your uncle for 10 minutes straight. He was so sad that he couldn't make it. Johnny shook his head. Okayasu and Uncle Josuke are two peas in a pod. Separate them. And they will both be depressed until they are reunited. Gyro raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound healthy. Okayasu suddenly burst into the conversation. Let's hurry up and watch the movie. I'm meeting up with Josuke and Koichi in 3 hours, and I don't want to be late. Okayasu sprinted towards the door, bringing out his stand and erasing the space in front of him in order to get there faster. The four friends watched as Johnny's family friends kicked down the door and began ordering the tickets and popcorn. Ida scratched his head. He's a bit eccentric, isn't he? Oh, this is Okayasu being tame. Wait till you see when he's around my uncle. Izuku turned to Johnny. Hey Jojo, do you know what movie we're watching? Johnny froze. Jolin was the one who picked out the movie. He had absolutely no idea what she did, but it was safe to say he didn't trust her. Johnny turned to face his friends, a nervous smile on his face. Everyone, brace yourselves, we're going in blind. 2 hours of pure torment later. She set us up with a frickin' rom-com. Everyone looked like Highway Star had just sucked out all of their nutrients. Johnny swore that he would kill Jolin when he got home. That was so unrealistic. Romantic comedies should try to take inspiration from real-life romance. Ida ranted, chopping the air as usual. Gyro looked like she was about to puke. Izuku and Uraraka looked embarrassed, and Okayasu was crouched in the bushes. I need something to distract me from that eyesore. Anyone got any ideas? Johnny said, rubbing his eyes. Well, we could tell each other a bit about ourselves, Uraraka said. I'll go first. Uraraka explained why she wanted to be a hero, and how she wanted to make money in order to support her family. Ida began clapping, praising Uraraka for her determination to help her family. Johnny smiled. You know, Uraraka, I'm kind of doing this for my family too. Really? Uraraka tilted her head to the side, curious. The others turned to look at him, equally interested. When I was a kid, my mom wasn't the nicest to me. That's a can of worms I want to avoid opening. But that's pretty much the gist. When I got out of there, I lived with my great-grandfather in America. He used to tell me all the stories about my father, and how amazing he was. I grew up idolizing both of them. Izuku had already heard this story, but it made him smile every time. For the other three, this is the first time they were heading this. Gyro had a worried look on her face. Jojo was abused. I had the old man train me with Hammond. It was partly because my stand is weak in close combat, but it was mostly because I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be like my dad too. That's why my hero costume resembles his outfit. They were my heroes during a time where I thought I would have none. I want to live up to their expectations. I want to stand on equal ground. Johnny looked at the sky, his eyes shining with a strong resolve. I have a legacy to protect. His three friends stared in awe. Izuku had tears in his eyes. Ida was so tense, it looked like his arms were about to shoot off. Uraraka grinned, and Gyro had a small smile on her face. Izuku put a hand on his friend's shoulder. I remember when we were kids. I promised that I would help you with that. Johnny smiled. And we said we would be heroes together. Form our own agency. The two just kind of stared off into the distance, the nostalgia overwhelming them. Hey, you two. You guys done having a flashback? Gyro snapped her fingers in front of them. Oh, it's sorry, Gyro, Izuku stammered out. It's fine, Midoriya. I just wanted to go next. Gyro began to twirl one of her earphone jacks with her finger. I come from a musical family. My mom is a composer, and my dad is a musician. They're both great, although my old man can be a bit embarrassing sometimes. I always thought I was going to be a musician like them, but using my quirk to help people just seemed so cool. I know it isn't some cool origin story. I'm kind of average. Gyro, remember what I said? Johnny reminded her. All right, sorry. Gyro stammered out. She had forgotten that he made her promise not to talk bad about herself. Uraraka beamed. I think it's really cool. Can you sing? Gyro turned red from embarrassment. Why, yeah. But I only usually do it by myself. Why don't you sing for other people? I bet you'd sound great. Izuku chimed in. Johnny shook his head. As her friends, we should respect her privacy. She'll sing when she's ready. Gyro turned to Johnny and muttered a quick thank you before returning to the conversation. Well, while we are on the topic of music, what bands do you guys listen to? Gyro asked, redirecting the conversation while staying in the same genre. I just listen to whatever is on the radio. I'm not all that picky. Izuku said, with Uraraka and Ida nodding in agreement. Fleetwood Mac. Johnny muttered from behind her. Gyro whipped around. What was that? She asked, her eyes wide. I said Okayasu is eating a Big Mac. Johnny said, going a little pink around the ears. No. You said something else. I want to hear it again. Gyro demanded. Fleetwood Mac, okay? I really like Fleetwood Mac. Johnny exclaimed. Gyro stared at him for a moment, before saying, I think you just became my best friend. Johnny looked down. Really? I mean, it's kind of old. You can't beat the classics, Jojo. You're absolutely right. I think Stevie Nicks should have just joined the band, instead of destroying her voice with cigarettes. Yes, the song with her in it were the best. Suddenly, Gyro gasped. You're a fanboy. Huh. Tusk. You named your stand Tusk. After the Fleetwood Mac song. Izuku turned to Johnny in disbelief. You never told me that. It wasn't supposed to be common knowledge. Don't be embarrassed. It's a rockin' name. It really fits. I just think it's so cool that you like Fleetwood Mac. Gyro assured Johnny. Johnny glared at his friends. Not a word to anyone. Understand? Ida made another strange motion with his hand. Our lips are sealed. Johnny shook his head and muttered. Yer days, but he was smiling. Maybe he should thank Jolin after all. Do you think there is a quirk that causes someone to aggressively shit themselves? Johnny asked. Izuku looked at his childhood friend, completely bewildered by his sudden question. Why are you asking me this? Where did this come from? Well, after we parted ways yesterday, I used the subway station bathroom, and this guy in the stall next to me was screaming, and the plopping sounds were going at the rate of machine gun fire. Johnny responded, taking enjoyment at Izuku's discomfort. I mean, it could be a P possibility, but that would be more of a cursed quirk. Don't you think? Izuku looked embarrassed. Well, it certainly sounded like he was in pain. Who knows? Maybe he just ate too much Taco Bell. Johnny smirked. Izuku caught Johnny's smirk and glared at him. Why, you're messing with me? No, it really happened. But your reaction was pretty funny. I hate it when you do that. Johnny chuckled. He remembered something. Hey, how are you coming with one for all? Izuku sighed. Still breaking my bones, unfortunately. Johnny shook his head. You know I don't like it when you do that. You have to be careful, Izuku, otherwise you might cause some permanent damage. You're like my brother. I care about you more than I'd like to admit. So you better learn how to stop breaking yourself, or I will be the one breaking you next, got it? Jojo. Izuku was starting to tear up. He was genuinely touched that Johnny thought of him that way. Oi, you need to stop all of the crying. Are you going to be the hero who smiles or the hero who weeps? Johnny said. Izuku wiped his eyes. Sorry, Jojo. It's just good to have friends again. Johnny frowned. Izuku didn't have a single friend until he showed up. And it was all thanks to that explosive bastard. If Johnny ever had a chance to fight Katsuki, he was going to kick him so hard in the balls that his brains would fly out of his skull. With that, the two friends separated and took their seats. An earphone jack tapped Johnny from across the room, and Johnny turned to see Gyro waving her phone at him. Rhiannon was playing on it. Johnny gave her a thumbs up. That's when Aizawa came into the room, followed by Jotaro. Aizawa was wrapped in bandages, resembling a mummy. While Johnny was glad that Aizawa could return to teaching, he was much more concerned with his father. Jotaro looked awful. There were bags under his eyes, and his proud features were almost drooping. He forgot to shave, and now his face was lined with stubble. Clearly, his father had a rough night. Johnny felt a single bead of sweat down the back of his head. His nightmares have been getting worse, Johnny noted. He was so busy worrying about his father. He almost didn't catch Aizawa talking about the sports festival. The sports festival was a good way to get noticed by pros. If you did well, you could get an internship that could seriously boost your credibility. Johnny didn't really need it. He already had a guaranteed internship. But he was determined to do his best so he could make a statement. After Aizawa was done, Jotaro took over for paranormal studies. All right, class, as you know, we last left off with the stone masks. Today, we are discussing their creators, known as the Pillar Men. Sue raised her hand. Yes, Asui? Sorry, this is a bit off topic. But are you okay, Dr. Kujo? You look like you haven't slept in days. The frog girl asked. While her face was normally devoid of expression, you could hear the concern in her voice. Jotaro waved her off. I appreciate your concern, but I can assure you I'm fine. This isn't anything new. Jotaro surveyed the room and noticed Johnny was looking down, a worried look on his face. Yer. I really need to get this sleeping problem under control. I'm scaring him. Jotaro thought to himself. Jotaro's nightmares have been occurring more frequently, and he wasn't sure why. They weren't even about his fight with Dio anymore. They were about Johnny. In every dream he had, Johnny got hurt, and Jotaro was always too late to save him. There had to be a reason he was suddenly so worried for Johnny. Was it the trauma of losing his friends coming back with a vengeance? Or was something bad about to happen? After school, Johnny was walking home with his friends. It had risen up to a group of 6. Takoyami had decided to join them. After his father's lesson about the Pillar Men, Ida looked like his head was about to explode. A whole race of vampire-like beings, and there was no mention of them in history. This is a lot to take in. That's actually not true. There were ruins and other archaeological finds that used to belong to the Pillar Men. They were just covered up so there wouldn't be mass panic. Johnny explained. Interesting. Your father said they were destroyed, but he never said how. Takoyami said. Johnny looked down. He knew it was his great-grandfather that did the deed, but if he explained that to his friends, it might sound like he was bragging. My grandfather took care of them. The group of teens turned to see Jotaro striding towards them. He looked a little better. He hadn't shaved yet, but he looked a bit more awake. Wait, the same guy that Jojo lived with in America? Gyro questioned. Jotaro nodded. He killed all three of them. Well, one of them is technically still alive, but his mind doesn't really work anymore. He had help, of course, but he was the one to finish each of them off. Jojo, you never told me your family has killed Aztec gods, Izuku said, writing about Joseph in his notebook. Well, the Pillar Men were kept a secret from the general population. If I suddenly began telling people that the old man saved the world, he would either get a lot of unwanted attention, or everyone would think I was crazy. Johnny explained. Then why did you just tell us, Dr. Kujo? Uraraka questioned. Johnny seems to trust the five of you, so I figured you deserved to know. Speaking of the old man, he's coming up to watch the sports festival, so you better get ready. Johnny turned to his friends. If I'm fighting any of you in the festival, I apologize in advance. Gramps is pretty biased and loud, and he loves to heckle. Please don't take him seriously. I'm more excited to meet him. I bet he's full of stories, Izuku said, turning to show Johnny his notebook. I could probably write a chapter on him alone. Johnny sighed. While he was nervous as to what Joseph would say to his friends, he couldn't deny that he was excited to see the old man again. He was basically a second father to him. Johnny looked towards the sky, a small smile on his face. He had a feeling the future would be bright. Oof. Johnny braced himself as an earphone jack hit the board of wood he was holding. Then a flurry of attacks pierced the wood, but Johnny managed to hold his ground. He was surprised when Gyro had asked him to help her train for the sports festival, but there was no way he could just say no. There was no denying that they have bonded since the Usch incident, and their shared love of music only added to that. While Johnny was pretty antisocial, he was intensely loyal to people he considered friends, and since they had nearly died together, Gyro definitely qualified for that category. They were on Dagaba Beach, where Izuku had trained with all might, although Gyro didn't know that. She was working up a sweat, huffing as she sat down to take a breather. I've never worked this hard in all my life. How do you do it? Gyro managed to get out through her panting. Johnny walked over to her and offered her a bottle of water, which Gyro gratefully accepted. You got to find the necessary motivation, something that will inspire you to keep going. Johnny responded. Johnny walked over and summoned Tusk, his stand giving a thoughtful chumi min, as Johnny readied a bullet, taking fire at a soda can sitting on top of a pile of trash. He fired, and the bullet shredded the can like it was made of paper. I wasn't born with good aim, I had to practice. I practiced almost every day, because I was motivated to fight for the people I care about. Johnny said, turning to his purple-haired friend. What are you fighting for, Gyro? Gyro looked down and began tapping her jacks together, clearly deep in thought. I guess I want to prove that I can be something, you know? That I can do more than just sit around twiddling with these things. Johnny walked over and sat down next to her. You're awfully sensitive when it comes to yourself. Why is that? He inquired. Gyro looked at him, her eyes showing a bit of hesitation, but then they relaxed, and she spoke. When I was in middle school, before I got into UA, the other girls in my class would make fun of me and my ears. I don't know why. I don't remember doing anything to them, but they always laughed at me behind my back. The worst part is, I could hear them because of my quirk. I heard every single awful thing they said about me. And I started to believe them. Johnny thought back to his mother, and he could feel her pain. He knew exactly how it felt to be unwanted. Don't listen to them. Whatever they said about you, it's definitely not true. I've seen you in action. Hell, I fought you. Your quirk is amazing. I mean, do you know how many villains you took out during the SG? Do you know how close you got to beating me in combat training? I panicked. Those girls, they were delusional. No, fuck it. They were colossal dumbasses. Gyro looked at Johnny, touched by his words. Thank you, Johnny. I really needed that. Johnny smiled at her, not one of his half smiles that he normally does, but a real, genuine smile. Hey, what are friends for? Gyro returned the smile. It felt good, opening up to Johnny. She hadn't even told her parents about it, and she could tell that he really appreciated it. Johnny seemed to be deep in thought, when suddenly he spoke. I didn't have my sister in my life for 13 years. Gyro's eyes widened as she took in what he just said. 13 years? Gyro asked in disbelief. Johnny solemnly nodded. Did it have something to do with my mom? Yes. Oh. The two teens say they're in silence for a while, lost in their thoughts, before Johnny spoke up. Well, we should probably get back to it. Gyro nodded and took another swig from her water bottle, before getting up. Johnny examined the board of wood. Gyro's earphone jacks made it look like Swiss cheese. Johnny shook his head. We're going to need something else. Johnny rummaged around the trash heap, before he pulled out a trash bag with Minta's face on it, hand-drawn. Gyro burst out laughing. How long was that there? Gyro asked, still trying to hold back her laughter. A while. You want to hit it? Gyro cracked her knuckles, a big smile creeping its way into her face. Oh, you know I do. Later. The two stared at Minta's deflated face with blank expressions. The satisfaction was over, and now they were just staring at it. I never thought a deflated Minta would be so disappointing, Johnny remarked. Gyro nodded. Sadly, it's not the real thing, so it just doesn't have the same amount of stress relief. Gyro grabbed one of her earphone jacks and started rubbing it. Man, I've been working with these for too long, starting to get sore. Johnny glanced at her thoughtfully, before reaching into his bag and pulling out a bag of ice. Lucky I came prepared. Gyro laughed. You're always prepared. Johnny smirked. If only that were true, Gyro. If only that were true. Jotaro Kujo was standing on the walkway above the beach, observing his son interact with Gyro. Bright young woman. She'd be a great help. Johnny needed to come out of his shell. You're a good father, you know that? Jotaro briefly glanced behind him to see Toshinori Yagi walking up to him, a knowing grin on his skeletal face. Maybe now, but for most of his life I wasn't there. The number one hero frowned. He knew Jotaro hadn't been present in his son's life, but it was clear that the young man didn't have any hard feelings. Why was Jotaro doubting himself? Your son doesn't resent you. In fact, he looks up to you. But what if I fail him? Toshi? All Might scratched his head. I honestly don't think that you can. Jotaro. He admires you, not unlike how young Midoriya admires me. You're his hero, and I don't think that will ever change. Jotaro surveyed the scene taking place in front of him. Johnny appeared to be encouraging Gyro, and she appeared to be listening to him intently. Jotaro felt a smile slowly creep its way onto his face. Perhaps he was worrying about nothing. Johnny. I honestly don't know what it is you see in me, Jojo. Gyro stated while icing her ears. I see a hero. Johnny answered simply. Gyro shook her head. You say my quirk is amazing, but it's nothing compared to someone like Bakugo. I just don't get why you see potential in me, that's all. Johnny sighed. You still don't get it. Allow me to make an analogy. If Bakugo was a kitchen knife, you would be a Swiss Army knife. He's really only good for one thing, while you can do a whole lot of shit. Sometimes, being efficient is better than being flashy, you know? Yeah, I think I do. It's weird. Ever since we started being friends, I've started to look at myself in a different light. No one had ever encouraged me the way that you do before. Well, except my parents. But it's their job to do that. I'm starting to think I might be able to do this. Gyro responded. Then a light bulb went off on Johnny's head. Hey, I have an idea. Those girls used to bully you because of your ears, so you felt bad about them, right? Gyro nodded. Well, don't think of them as ears. Think of them as if they are whips. A whip is a strong, sturdy weapon that could be used for all sorts of things. Herding cattle, self-defense, grabbing onto things. They're whips. You're Indiana Jones. Gyro snorted. You really are a dork, making pop culture references on me. Oi, do you want my help or not? I never said that was a bad thing. It was a good idea. Whips. Yeah, I'll think about that. Johnny was putting on his gym clothes when he stopped to observe the star birthmark on his shoulder. The sight of it reminded the young Joestar of the responsibility that came with bearing it. Every hero in his bloodline had the same birthmark, and each of them cemented their place in history. His namesake, Jonathan Joestar, had started something that Johnny had to live up to. But could he? Maybe he was like his grandmother, Holly, and he was only destined to help bring about history rather than making it. Tusk wasn't Star Platinum after all, or Gold Experience. How can you save the world with fingernails? Johnny punched himself in the face. He shouldn't have doubts like this, not after he was lecturing Gyro about having similar problems. She probably would think he is a hypocrite. Besides, Joseph Joestar had beaten the Pillar Men without the help of a stand, so it wasn't like he was without hope. You know, I remember when you were little. You were always running around. You were so hard to catch. Johnny turned to see Joseph Joestar standing in the doorway, a kind yet mischievous glint in his green eyes. He was wearing his fedora and his yellow polo shirt. Johnny grinned at the sight of the old man. You always had to use hermit purple because I was faster than you. Joseph chuckled. Well, my body wasn't exactly in good shape back then. I still had to use a cane. The eldest Joestar moved and put a hand on his great-grandson's shoulder. You've grown into a fine young man, Johnny. Although, perhaps you could use what learned from your younger years to help you in the first event. Joseph winked at Johnny, and he immediately understood. Thanks, Gramps. You know, I'm so excited. I almost feel like a kid again. Joseph playfully nudged Johnny as he exited the room. Johnny couldn't help but smile. Ever since he moved in with his father, he couldn't deny that he missed the old man. Wait. He wasn't allowed to be in here, Johnny realized. He couldn't help but laugh. Since when did Joseph Joestar ever follow the rules? Oh, Johnny. The old man peeked his head back into the room. Johnny said, zipping up his gym suit. Joseph smiled. Remember, no matter what happens today, I'm proud of you. Johnny gave Joseph a quick thumbs up before responding. You better get lost, old man, before they find out you're trespassing. Probably a good idea. Joseph muttered. Mr. Joestar, I think you overstayed your welcome. Aizawa's voice came from the speakers outside. Oh no! Joseph sprinted out of the locker room while Johnny chuckled at the old man's antics. Johnny made his way over to the waiting room where the rest of his class was waiting. Hey Jojo, was that your grandpa? Suyu asked. Great-grandpa, actually. Johnny responded. Mina stood up and began frustratingly pounding on the table. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Why does he look so young? Johnny nervously chuckled. Well, that's actually a funny story. 10 years ago, a 6-year-old Johnny was taking pot shots at a tin can. His tiny stand was chirping in frustration as Johnny kept missing every shot. I know, I'm trying. An aged Joseph was trying his best to cook dinner. but Susie Q was always better at it than him. A tear went down the old man's cheek as he remembered his wife. She had passed recently, and Joseph was taking it rather hard. However, Joseph had a feeling that he would be with her again soon. That's when the door to the mansion opened, and a college student sporting a pompadour walked in. "Guess who?" Josuke Higashikita said, a big smile plastered on his face. "Uncle Josuke." The youngest Joestar cried as he ran to greet his beloved uncle. Joseph's face lit up as his son embraced Johnny. "Josuke, what a great surprise. What are you doing in America?" Josuke turned to his father. "I came to see you. I heard about your wife." Joseph looked down. "We were both getting up there in age. It really was only a matter of time. Actually, we made it a competition to see who goes first." He let out a dry chuckle. "She won." Josuke shook his head. "Mr. Joe Dad, it's okay to feel sad. It isn't good to keep these feelings bottled up." Joseph waved him off. "I already let them out, Josuke. I've just accepted it. That's all. I'm just glad I was still able to have her in my life. After she found out about you, she was so angry. I thought I lost her for good. I'm so grateful that she forgave me, even though I didn't deserve it." Josuke nodded thoughtfully as he made his way over to the tin can that Johnny was attempting to shoot. "Well, at least you aren't alone." The old man nodded as he hobbled his way back to the kitchen. Josuke kneeled down next to his nephew. "You trying to hit that?" "Yeah, but I keep missing," Johnny yelled in frustration. Josuke put a reassuring hand on Johnny's shoulder. "Your dad taught me how to aim using ball bearings, so I have some experience." Johnny turned to his uncle with wide eyes. "Really? Dad taught you? Holy shit. This kid is too adorable for me." Josuke thought to himself. "Yeah, the trick is, you've got to keep your concentration. Focus on the can, keep calm. If you miss, you miss. Just try again, and don't let it get to you." With Josuke's guidance, Johnny calmed down. He needed to focus. Johnny fired another shot, and his face lit up with delight as the tin can fell over. "That's great. Good job, kid." Josuke pumped his fist into the air. Joseph came into the room, a soft smile on his wizened features. "You'd make a good teacher, Josuke." Josuke looked at his father in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah, you know what else you'd be good at?" "What?" "Healing me. I was cutting carrots and my fingers got all gittery, and well." Joseph lifted up his non-mechanical hand to reveal a nasty cut. "Dad, why are you cooking by yourself? You can't do that in your condition." "What?" "It's not like I could ask Johnny to do it. Susie was always the better cook." "Hold on." Josuke brought out Crazy Diamond and began treating the old man's wound. "Uncle Josuke?" "Is Gramps okay?" "Yeah, he's just stupid." "Hey." Johnny giggled. "Ha. Uncle Josuke said you were stupid." "Yeah, he's such a dummy, isn't he, Johnny?" "Yeah. Josuke," Joseph said. "Big old wrinkly dummy." Johnny was having a laughing fit. "Josuke, my wound is healed." Josuke was having too much fun making his nephew laugh. He wasn't really paying attention until his father screamed at him. "Josuke." "What?" Josuke turned around and froze. Standing in front of him was a 50-year-old man with a startled expression. The not-so-old Joseph Joestar ran to the mirror and began rubbing his face, before finally, "Oh my God." The present. Johnny smiled as he remembered the old man's reaction. Crazy Diamond had the ability to return object to a previous state, so when Josuke forgot to turn off his ability, he accidentally de-aged the old man. He remembered that his father had showed up and chewed out his uncle, but what was done had been done. Now Joseph Joestar had a longer than normal lifespan. Hell, he could even meet Johnny's kids if he played his cards right. "Wow, well, good for him," Mina exclaimed. "It's not all sunshine and rainbows, Ashido." He's going to outlive his own daughter. I can't imagine what he must be feeling about that. Never mind, now I'm sad. You made me feel sad before the sports festival, Jojo. I hope you're happy, Mina pouted. Johnny shook his head, muttering a quick yer before making his way to Izuku, and saw that his friend was a nervous, stuttering mess. You good, Izuku? Does it look I'm good? Izuku sputtered out. Johnny smirked. His sarcasm appeared to be rubbing off on the one-for-all user. Hey, I know you can't use that quirk without hurting yourself, but there is always something else that you could use. What's that? Johnny poked Izuku in the forehead. Your brain, Izuku. Your quirk may be working against you, but your mind never will. Try to think outside the box, and I'm sure you'll be fine. Midoriya. The two friends turned to see Todoroki standing there, his face as stoic as always, but there was a fiery determination in his eyes. I'm sorry, Todoroni. I'm talking to him right now. Todoroki, take care to remember that, Kujo. I wish to speak with you as well. Johnny and Izuku waited for Todoroki to continue. Objectively speaking, I'm stronger than the both of you. Izuku looked taken aback, while Johnny was unamused. Huh? Izuku stammered out. Brains beats brawn any day, Elsa. The both of you have All Might's attention. Kujo, I know it is because your father is friends with him. As for you, Midoriya, I won't pry into it. Just know that I will beat you. Did Todoroki find out about One for All? No, he couldn't have. But he isn't wrong about All Might and Izuku. Hey man, why are you picking a fight? Kirishima intervened. I don't care. I'm not here to make friends. Todoroki responded. Todoroki, I'm not sure why you needed to tell me that you were going to beat me. You're clearly stronger than me. And I can't measure up to anyone else when it comes to skill. Izuku, shut. But everyone here is aiming for the top, and I will not fall behind. I'm going to give it everything I've got, Izuku stated, his eyes showing his resolve. Todoroki gave Izuku and Johnny one last glance before walking away. While Johnny patted Izuku on the back, his respect for his friend had grown due to his proclamation. The obstacle course. Jotaro sat in the stands next to his grandfather. Giorno and Jolin were on his right, while Josuke, Okayasu, and Koichi were behind them, accompanied by an annoyed Ronin Kishibe. I'm excited, Joseph exclaimed. I may have taught him a few things, but I never actually got to see Johnny fight before. Jotaro shrugged. He's a clever kid. I think he'll get pretty far. Josuke, I have to pee. What the hell, Okayasu? I asked if you had to go before we sat down. The first event is about to start. I didn't have to go then. That's when midnight passed by the family. I'm hosting the festival today. Jotaro, can I have a kiss for good luck? No, get lost. Oh, come on. Joseph chuckled. Although Jotaro was much older, he still had his attitude. Listen, Nimiri. You are a respected colleague. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't have any romantic inclinations towards you in the slightest. Midnight pouted. One of these days, you're going to stop playing hard to get. I'm not playing, I am hard to get. Gra. The R-rated hero stomped off, while Jolin was trying not to laugh. Yer Dawa, you're really stubborn, aren't you, old man? Jotaro glanced at his daughter. I don't like being flirted with, you know that. She's lucky I respect her, or I would have raised my voice. Oh, come on, Jotaro. She seems like a nice woman. It might be good for you, Joseph teased. No. Midnight stole her way over to the center of the field, much to the admiration of the audience, and called out Bakugo to come give his oath. The audience watched as the explosive blonde took the stage. I just want to say, I'm gonna win. There was an immediate uproar. Josuke growled to himself. What a little bitch. Rohan, however, was laughing like there was no tomorrow. The ball's on that kid. I can't wait to see someone take him down and wipe that smug look off his face," the manga artist gleefully stated. Joseph shook his head, while Jotaro glared at his student. Bakugo's pompous attitude reminded him of someone, and he was the last person Jotaro wanted to be reminded of right now. That kid just painted a target on Johnny's back, since they are in the same class, Giorno noted, while Jolin was livid. That kid was always trouble. Johnny was always defending Midoriya from him when we were kids. That's when the screen behind Midnight flashed the words "obstacle course," and the students filtered towards the start line. The Joestar family watched in anticipation as the students began to get ready for the race. "Begin," Present Mike's voice rang out. Immediately, one of the students broke from the pack, running with a panicked expression on their face. There was only one sound as the students sprinted at full speed, leaving the dazed students behind. Nitrandave. Joseph jumped out his seat in excitement. "Yes, he's using the technique. Go Johnny." Jotaro groaned. "Johnny." The youngest Joestar huffed as he sprinted as fast as he can. He had managed to get the drop on everyone by yelling at the top of his lungs, but it was only a matter of time before they caught up. Johnny briefly looked back and saw that the start line was frozen over, and that a certain scarred classmate was gunning straight for him, as well as the flying ferret boy. Suddenly Johnny's leg froze up. He looked down and saw to his horror that Todoroki had fired a second ice attack directly at him. Now he was frozen in the spot, and Todoroki and Bakugo quickly bolted past him, the ash blonde flashing him a cocky smile as he rushed past. Johnny quickly fired bullets into the ice, smirking. He knew Todoroki would try something like this if he quickly stole the lead, and he watched in satisfaction as the two class powerhouses ran straight into the robots from the entrance exam. Johnny ran in between the two, flashing Bakugo the same cocky smile as he rushed past. "Jojo, you bastard, you knew this would happen," Katsuki screamed after him. Johnny chuckled. "Yeah, but don't worry, you're gonna win, right? Fuck you." Johnny was the robot's collapse in front of him, ice crawling all over the place, and realized Todoroki was still ahead of him. Blocked by the fallen robots, Johnny quickly tried to formulate a plan as other students ran past him. Then he remembered something that Joseph had told him. He and his best friend, Cesar Zeppeli, had outsmarted cars by using Hammond-filled icicles to make a rope of sorts. If ice could be used with Hammond, then maybe. Elsewhere in the course, Kyoka jabbed her earphone jacks into two robots, sending the sound of her heartbeat into them and causing them to short-circuit. She couldn't help but smile. If she hadn't trained with Jojo, that might have hurt. Her mind wandered back to her friend as she kept running. Last she saw him, he was standing around, clearly trying to formulate a plan. Jiru. Speaking of Jojo, he was now hurtling towards her. He was glowing with the familiar golden hue of Hammond, and he was sliding on Todoroki's ice like Frozone. He was reaching out his hand, and she got what he was implying. She grabbed it as he zoomed past, and the earphone jack user felt a jolt as she went with him. "Hey, not that I don't appreciate it, but why are you helping me? Isn't it every man for himself?" Kyoka asked as they slid across the ice. "It was a split-second decision, and I may need your help with something," Johnny responded. "Fair enough. What's this?" Johnny Kujo and Kyoka Gyro have formed an alliance. Present Mid exclaimed. Heroes should always learn to work together. They made a pretty intelligent choice, teaming up. It should be interesting to see how their abilities complement each other. Aizawa explained. "Okay, cool. This isn't illegal. Ready for the plan." That wasn't funny. The truth is, I really need your help. You see the ravine up ahead? Johnny asked. Kyoka nodded in response as Johnny continued. "I need you to climb on my back and extend your jacks as far as you can to both sides. That way, I can balance better on those ropes." Kyoka stared dumbfounded at his plan. What if I just pull you backwards? Johnny shook his head. The momentum from the ice should help with that. What? Johnny turned his head at her, grinning nervously. I don't know how to stop. What the hell do you mean? Listen, so you trust me or not? Not at the moment. Well, it too bad because here we go. Janjuwu. The two teens rocketed off of a piece of ice that was slanted upwards like a ramp, and they sailed over the students who were attempting to cross the ravine. Suyu, who had been crawling on the ropes on all fours, briefly looked up in surprise to see her classmates fly over her. Kyoka screaming her head off as she struggled to maintain her grip on Johnny's back. They landed on one of the ropes, the rope buckling under their combined weight. But the rope didn't snap. Kyoka glanced down and saw the golden light of Hammond was surrounding the rope. I get it. Jojo is using that Hammond stuff to make the rope stronger, so it will bounce us further. He needed me to use my earphone jacks, so he could stay on until the rope was ready. Sure enough, the rope snapped back to its original position, launching Johnny and Kyoka to the other side of the ravine. They both landed on the other side, Kyoka rolling to a stop in the path, while Johnny landed in a bush. Kyoka rushed over and helped the young Joestar get out. He was covered in prickly things. Johnny nodded in appreciation, before a panicked look came across his face as he broke off sprinting. Kyoka looked towards the source of Johnny's panic, and saw Bakugo rocketing towards him with an expression that made it clear the explosive blonde was about to fry her friend. I'm back, Jojo. As Johnny bolted away, Kyoka mentally wished him luck as she continued to run. The Joestar family. Jasuke felt a bead of sweat run down his head as he watched the explosive teen chase his nephew. It was definitely concerning that Bakugo seemed to have it out for Johnny. Even Rohan seemed a bit nervous, and Rohan doesn't like anybody. Johnny was catching up to that Todoroki kid, but they were coming up on the minefields. Johnny began to jump from side to side, weaving and bobbing between the mines. Jotaro nodded in recognition. Johnny's eyesight was pretty damn good. He had to train his eyes so he could aim better with Tusk. Johnny was able to spot the mines in the ground with his eyesight alone. That's when a massive explosion was triggered, and Izuku Midoriya went flying over the other students. Johnny looked up in surprise. Then he broke out into a smile. Izuku was using his brain. Then Johnny realized Izuku was going to beat him, so he kept running. Giorno crossed his legs, softly muttering encouragement in Johnny's direction. Jolene was on the edge of her seat, and Joseph was screaming at the top of his lungs. Jotaro only watched with his normal attitude, calm and collected, and Josuke and the rest of the Duwang gang were making all sorts of noises. Then, the family went into an uproar when Ida detonated a few of the mines, the impact of the blast knocking Johnny over to faceplant in the dirt. Look where you're going, Four Eyes, Joseph screamed. Johnny scrambled to his feet, and he quickly made his way to the finish line. Johnny had gotten 5th place. The explosion had ruined his plan, and Bakugo and Todoroki had ended up passing him. Jotaro's green eyes followed his son as the youngest Joestar furiously shook his head, clearly upset that he hadn't done better. He shouldn't be so hard on himself. He did amazing, Jolene exclaimed. Johnny won't be satisfied with anything other than his best. He wants to make a good impression. Jotaro noted. Johnny. Well, that could have gone better. It's not that he wasn't satisfied with 5th place, but he felt as though he could have done better. After all, it was an accident that caused him to lose his lead. He didn't blame Ida either. He didn't blame anyone. It was just annoying. Oi, Jojo. Johnny turned, only for Gyro to punch him in the arm. Oh, what was that for? Gyro have him a dirty look. For that dumb-ass plan that you dragged me into. We could have fell. Which we didn't. Johnny snapped back, rubbing his arm. Got a hell of an arm, sheesh, he muttered under his breath. Next up, the cavalry battle, Midnight shouted. Uh-oh. Johnny listened as Midnight explained the point system. and froze when he realized the implications of it were. Izuku may have won the obstacle course, but now the poor guy had a big 10 million point target painted on his back. There was no way Johnny wasn't going to support his friend, not when Izuku needed him most. Izuku. The green bean turned. Judging from his face, he was clearly panicking. Izuku's expression turned to one of relief. Jojo, are you sure? I'll probably just bring you down. Johnny slapped the back of Izuku's head. Oh, you're not going to bring me down, dumbass. I am perfectly happy supporting you. I don't deserve a friend like you. Shut it. If you didn't, I wouldn't be here. Deku, Jojo. The two childhood friends turned to see your rocker running up to them with her usual bubbly personality. Can I join you guys? Are you sure, Uraraka? Me and Jojo have pretty big targets on our backs. Yeah, I think it's better to team up with people you like. Izuku made a weird face, and Johnny was a bit concerned for his health. But then he realized that Izuku was just trying to hold back tears. Ida, Gyro, you guys in? Johnny questioned. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid Todoroki isn't the only one who sees you guys as rivals. I will be competing against you. Ida respectfully declined. You're the one always telling me to believe in myself, Jojo. As much as I would love to team up again, I want to try my luck against you again, Gyro said, almost shamefully. Johnny smiled. That's perfectly fine. Just don't expect us to go easy on you too. Ida and Gyro both nodded and went to join their respective teams. Johnny wasn't upset in the slightest, mostly due to Gyro. She was giving it another shot, and honestly, some small part of him was hoping that she would beat him. That's when a certain bird boy went up to them. Hello, I couldn't help but notice the three of you were lacking teammates. I was wondering if I could join, Takoyami asked. Sure, but why? Izuku asked in return. Takoyami nodded in Johnny's direction. Jojo and I have worked well together in the past. Having him on my team would be my best bet for continuing in the competition. Johnny smirked. It's true. We did make a pretty good team. I guess it's settled then. The team of four quickly assembled themselves, after respectfully turning down this weird pink-haired girl who wanted to put her babies on them. Johnny didn't want to ask. Izuku was in top. Being the guy with the million, Uraraka and Johnny were on the sides, and Takoyami was in the front. Johnny surveyed the competition and saw that Ida had joined Todoroki's team. In fact, the entire team was stacked with powerful quirks. Yaoyorozu and Kaminari were on his team too, and that might prove to be difficult. Begin. Midnight's voice thundered through the stadium as all of the teams began scrambling around. Team Izuku immediately ran away, intending to keep their opponents at bay and protect their headband. Suddenly, Johnny felt as though he was trudging through mud. We're stuck, Uraraka cried, as the team began to sink into the ground. There, it's that guy's quirk. Izuku pointed to the front runner of a team of Class 1B students, which happened to be gaining on them. Takoyami, can Dark Shadow pull us out? Johnny asked. Yes, but I doubt it could before they get to us. Johnny racked his brain for ideas when a light bulb went off. Izuku glanced down, saw the sly grin on his friend's face, and instantly knew Johnny had something up his sleeve. Jojo, I know that face. That's your crazy idea face. Johnny winked at Izuku, causing a nervous head of sweat to go down the side of his friend's face. Uraraka, you think you could make our rider float? What? The gravity quirk user asked in confusion. Just do it, trust me. Johnny said calmly, despite the many teams rushing to grab their headband. Oh okay, Uraraka touched Izuku's leg, despite the one for all users' protests, and Izuku flew up into the air, only to be stopped by something wrapped around his leg. Izuku looked down and saw a golden thread attached to his leg. Johnny was holding on to it, Hammond flowing through his body, and a part of his gym jacket was shredded. Izuku then understood. Johnny had ripped a thread out of his gym uniform and was using Hammond to enhance the string and keep Izuku tied down. Now that Izuku was a human balloon, he was out of their opponent's reach, thus keeping their headband safe. Takoyami, you can take your time digging us out, because our headband isn't going anywhere, Johnny said, his smile never leaving his face. Takoyami nodded his head. You continue to impress me, Jojo. Dark shadow clawed its way out of the mud as the rest of the teams could only stare awkwardly into the sky. Izuku's team began to run once more, as the other teams turned on each other. Just when they looked like they were in the clear, Uraraka stopped. My foot. Izuku looked down to see one of Mainta's balls underneath Uraraka's foot. The class perv, along with Tsuyu, were hiding in a makeshift tent that Shoji had made with his arms. Johnny shot the heel of Uraraka's show with tusk, taking off the bottom of her shoe, freeing her in the process. Thanks, Joe, Uraraka froze. Johnny had turned white as a sheet, and it was clear he was about to faint. Jojo, Izuku shouted from above. He had begun floating upwards since Johnny had let go of the string. Uraraka deactivated her quirk, and Takoyami used Dark Shadow to catch Izuku on the way down. Izuku grabbed his friend on the shoulder to prevent him from falling over. What's happening to him? Uraraka shouted. There isn't anything wrong with his body. Which means Izuku glanced at Tusk, and to his shock, he saw an earphone jack plugged into the tiny stand. Gyro had attacked Tusk as soon as he pulled it out to help Uraraka. With Takoyami guarding, it would have been impossible to attack Johnny directly, so she waited for him to use his stand. However, since Johnny's stand isn't very big, the amount of pain that Johnny was feeling was 10 times worse than if she had plugged it into his body. Takoyami quickly knocked Gyro's jacks aside, freeing Johnny. Stupid bird, Gyro muttered, before noticing that their headband was gone. Shit! Dark Shadow supported Johnny as the team fled from their attackers. Are you okay, Jojo? Uraraka asked, concerned. FFF fine. J just GG great. Johnny weakly responded, somewhat sarcastically. That's when a blue light rushed past them, and Todoroki's team stopped with their headband. A loud "oh no" could be heard from the stands, and Johnny had to smile despite the fact that he felt like he was going to puke. At least the old man was still rooting for him. Izuku. Yeah, Jojo. Are we going to get our 10 million back, or what? Izuku's eyebrows furrowed, before he broke out into a grin. Even in his current condition, Johnny was as strong as ever. The two teams rushed each other, and Johnny found the strength to run. Deku. Bakugo launched himself towards the two teams, attempting to secure the win for himself. Then the horn blew, and the explosive teen fell right on his face, and Johnny had to suppress a laugh. Then he puked all over the arena, but waved the medics off. Izuku began to tear up. We lost our headband. Not quite. Takoyami held up a headband. I managed to snag this off of Todoroki during the confrontation. Thanks to your leadership, we are able to move on. Izuku looked shocked, but then he shook his head. Jojo was the one coming up with all the plans. That's a load of bullshit, broccoli boy. I was down for the count for quite a while. If it weren't for your quick thinking, we would have been sitting ducks. Johnny commented while holding his stomach. Uraraka frowned. You should probably see Recovery Girl, you look really sick. Johnny nodded, patted his sobbing friend on the shoulder, and hobbled towards the medical bay. Gyro watched as he limped away, before making her way over to Uraraka. Is Jojo okay? He looks hurt. Uraraka scratched the back of her head. How do I put this? Recovery Girl's office. What happened to you? Your insides were vibrating. Johnny scratched his head, giving the school nurse a sheepish smile. An unfortunate mishap involving sound. Inside your body. Johnny shrugged, and Recovery Girl huffed. I suppose I should let you back into the competition. But be careful. You don't want to end up like that Midoriya boy, always breaking things. Johnny exited the office and almost bumped into Gyro. Oh, hey. Jojo, I'm so sorry, I didn't. Calm down. It's not a big deal. Yes, it is. I could have killed you. Johnny shook his head. I'm sure that once you saw how it was affecting me, you would have stopped. Besides, you beat me, didn't you? Gyro paused. She did catch him off guard, albeit in a way she didn't want to. I guess I did, but I never wanted to hurt you. You saw an opportunity and you took it, and you took me out of the race for a while. I got hurt because I wasn't being careful, so don't feel guilty about it. If anything, you should be proud of yourself. Johnny smiled. I'm sure you'll do great in the next event. I didn't get to move on Jojo. That weirdo from 1B swiped it from Hagakure when we were attacking you guys. Gyro said, looking down. Johnny frowned. That sucks. But don't feel bad about it. You got pretty far. Geez, I came down here to make sure you were okay, and you ended up encouraging me instead. Gyro let out a dry chuckle. Johnny shrugged, and the two made their way to the lunchroom, enjoying each other's company. Back in the field. All right, everybody. The final round is on the horizon. Present Mike Boom. What's this? It seems like Class 1A is going full on fanservice. What are they doing? Aizawa sounded disappointed. Johnny looked over and saw that all of the girls in Class 1A were now in cheerleading uniforms. Judging from their expressions, it was clear that it wasn't their idea. Johnny burst out laughing when he noticed Mainta and Kaminari oogling their classmates. Did they actually fall for something that those two idiots told them? Gyro, who was now hugging her body in embarrassment, noticed that Johnny was on the floor, pounding his fist on the ground and cackling like a madman, shouted, Hey, stop laughing. Johnny turned to his friend, still giggling, and picked up the pom-poms that she threw on the ground. Give me a G. Johnny began waving them around. Give me a U. If you spell gullible, I swear to God. Johnny broke down in a giggle fit. Sorry, Snort, I'm just teasing you. I'm sensitive about this stuff. Jojo. Momo fell on her knees, disappointed with herself. Why do I keep calling for that stupid pervert schemes? Momo asked as Uraraka patted her on the back. Johnny wiped a tear from his eye as he finally calmed down. Sorry, it's just so amusing when people fall for stupid shit. Johnny observed his friends and noticed that they really were uncomfortable. Johnny sighed. Yer. Johnny motioned for Jotaro, who was standing in the field with a bag. His father walked over and tossed the bag to his son. You need a new uniform? Yeah, but they do too. The girls looked at Johnny in shock. What are you talking about, Jojo? Suyu questioned. Johnny shrugged. I usually tear my gym uniform to pieces in order to get access to string for Hammond, so I have a bag full of replacements. I don't really need them at the moment, and you guys looked uncomfortable, so I thought I'd help you all out. The girls rushed towards the bag, each of them taking jackets to cover up, thanking their friend as they went past. Gyro shot Johnny a grateful look as she put hers on. Johnny remembered what she told him on the beach, how people from her middle school used to bully her for her appearance. Putting a spotlight on her body like that must have been humiliating for her. Somewhere Jonathan Joestar was smiling. What the hell, Jojo? Mainta screamed. We had such a good view too. Listen here, you little shit. Johnny suddenly towered over his grape-headed classmate, a very Jotaro-esque glare piercing through Mainta like a sharpened knife. I'm pretty lenient when it comes to tricking people. That's usually how I win fights after all. But taking advantage of someone's trust for pleasure, that's something I can't condone, especially when they are putting their trust in you. I don't stab people in the back. So if you pull shit like this again, I will slit you open from mouth to anus and wear you like a jacket, understand? Why, yes, sir. Mainta shuffled away, frightened out of his wits. Jotaro watched his son, While he didn't show it, he was touched by his son's act of kindness. It was good to know that Johnny had a good heart. It means that Jotaro did something right. Jotaro reflected on his youth. When I was his age, I probably would have just ignored it. But Johnny went out of his way to help his classmates. Guess he's nicer than me, huh? Jotaro swelled with pride for his son, and he walked his way back towards his family. He stopped when he noticed that someone had joined them. Mom, you made it. Holly Joestar Kujo smiled at her son. She was getting up there in age, but she was still quite a beautiful woman. How could I not? I had to see my grandson. You've raised such a sweet boy, Jotaro. Jotaro shook his head. Don't forget that Gramps had a hand in that, Mom. He deserves more credit than me. Nonsense. The boy loves his father. Joseph reassured his grandson. He wants to be like you, Jotaro. Jotaro took a seat next to his mother, embracing her. I'm glad you're here, Mom. I haven't seen you in a while. Holly returned the hug. Me too, Jotaro. Back to Johnny. Johnny scoured the list, looking for the person that he had to fight. Izuku put a hand on Johnny's shoulder. What is it, Green Bean? Johnny asked. Izuku pointed a shaking head up to one of the first fights, and Johnny froze. Johnny Kujo vs. Izuku Midoriya. Johnny immediately understood the situation. There was no way he could be in his friend's corner this time. If he was going to advance in the final round, he was going to have to beat his best friend. Before we get into the fight, I would like to provide an analysis of the characters. As you might have noticed, Johnny isn't nearly as cold as he was in SBR. This is because he actually had a decent upbringing through Joseph. He knows how it feels to be loved. That doesn't mean that this version of Johnny doesn't have some of the same problems. Name: Jonathan Noriaki Kujo. Alias: Johnny Jojo. Age: 16. Hair color: chestnut brown like eyes of heaven. Eye color: aqua like Jotaro. Quirk: nah. Stand: Tusk. Abilities: Johnny's stand, Tusk, allows him to shoot his fingernails like bullets. While he does have limited ammo, they grow back rather quickly. He has full control over the intensity of his shots, meaning he can fire non-lethal impact rounds, as well as insanely lethal rounds. The stand itself is practically harmless. It can only float next to its user, making a chumamin sound. Since the stand is so small, any damage that the stand takes will be transferred to the user 10 times more potent. Thus, Johnny has to guard his stand, not the other way around. Johnny is also fairly proficient with Hammon, an ancient breathing technique that was primarily used for eliminating the undead, but is now utilized by Johnny as a means of close combat. Hammon allows Johnny to enhance the durability of certain objects, such as string, and it increases his physical strength to that of a weak stand. Everything Johnny knows about Hammon, he learned from his great-grandfather, Joseph Joestar. Personality: Johnny is known for his dry, sarcastic sense of humor. He frequently makes backhanded comments towards friends and foe alike, although towards friends it is usually in a teasing manner. Johnny puts on a fake confident persona around others. That way they can perceive him as strong, not unlike his father's tough guy persona. In reality, Johnny is far from confident in his abilities, and he frequently puts himself down, although he doesn't confide to anyone out of fear, believing that they would lose faith in him if they saw just how worried he actually is. Johnny secretly believes that he could never amount to anything, and this is due to something his mother told him a while back. He secretly thought she was right. Johnny is embarrassed that Tusk is a weak little stand, while Jotaro has Star Platinum, one of the most powerful stands in existence. He compares himself to his father, and it's starting to bring him down. Relationships: Jotaro Kujo. Jotaro is the person that Johnny admires most. He loves his father more than anything, and he strives to be just like him. Unfortunately, his stand is nowhere near as powerful as Star Platinum. Thus, Johnny makes some unhealthy comparisons between Jotaro and himself. Jotaro loves his son a lot. He cherishes Johnny just as he does with Jolin, and he tries his best to make up for the years he missed in Johnny's life. Jotaro is a very loving father, although he doesn't really show it that much, and he is perfectly happy to die for his son if he has to. Recently, Jotaro has been having nightmares over Johnny getting hurt, and they have been getting worse. In fact, the night before the sports festival was the worst, almost as if it was a warning. Jolin Kujo. Johnny has only recently developed a relationship with his older sister, due to a messy divorce and a wall of lies keeping them apart for most of his life. Nonetheless, Johnny loves his sister, and he is happy that they finally get to be siblings again. Jolin, due to believing her brother was dead for most of her life, has become a bit overprotective of her brother. She is also one of the few people who understands just how much their mother hurt Johnny, and is making an effort to break Johnny out of his shell. Susan Kujo. This bitch broke our horse boy. While she was very loving towards Jolin, for some reason she hated her son, and called him worthless right to his face. It was never physical abuse, only emotional, as hitting her son would get her in trouble. Despite moving into a better home with Joseph and Susie Q, the trauma that his mother gave him has always stuck with him. After finding out that Jolin was led to believe that he was dead by their mother, Johnny was furious, and it inevitably led to a confrontation. Joseph Joestar. Johnny looks up to Joseph, although not to the same extent as his father, and the old man is usually guaranteed to put a smile on his face. Joseph cares for Johnny quite a lot, and would go to great lengths to keep him safe. Now that Joseph is in fighting shape again, who knows? He might have to. Josuke Higashikita. Josuke is pretty much the cool uncle. He frequently visited both his father and Johnny in America, and Josuke usually brought some sort of present. Johnny actually considered copying his uncle's hairstyle, but Joseph hastily talked him out of it. Josie was the one who taught Johnny how to aim, and Johnny considers him one of the best mentors you could ever have. Josuke is currently running a hero agency in Morio, with the help of the Duwang Gang. Yes, they are canonically called the Duwang Gang. This was actually a jab at Rohan, after one of his mangas was translated poorly, and Morio was changed to Duwang, fulfilling his duty to protect the small town. Johnny has a guaranteed internship with his uncle, Giorno Giovanna. Despite meeting the mafia boss only days after the ending of Stone Ocean, Johnny has grown close with his newfound relative. Despite Giorno's bizarre origins, Johnny considers him a part of the family, and he has also begun emulating the blonde Joestar, albeit unintentionally. Giorno has grown protective over Johnny, as his nephew is arguably the closest blood relative he has. Recognizing that they are kindred spirits due to their shared history of shitty parents, the two have formed quite a bond. Izuku Midoriya. Johnny's closest friend and confidant. The two pretty much grew up together, until Johnny moved to America. Despite years of not seeing each other in person, their friendship is stronger than ever. Johnny will always be in his friend's corner, no matter what happens. The two have a goal of becoming heroes together, and nothing will ever stand in the way of their dream. Kyoka Gyro. While they initially didn't get along very well, they have come to be pretty close friends, most likely due to their shared near-death experience. Kyoka has also become a confidant of his, most likely because he sees a lot of himself in her. Out of all the girls in the school, she is the only one he actually hangs out with. Even Kyoka has to admit that she has grown to care for the youngest Joestar quite a bit, although she isn't quite sure whether he is a really good friend or something more. Despite Johnny's insistence that she is amazing, Kyoka still believes that she is inferior to him, and that he is way out of her league. Johnny, on the other hand, admires her a great deal, and is genuinely confused as to why she thinks so poorly of herself. He has made it his mission to give her confidence, even if he doesn't have any himself. Stats: Power, 25. Speed, 45. Technique, 55. Intelligence, 55. Cooperativeness, 35. Stand stats. Power, E. Speed, E. Range, D. Durability, E. Precision, B. Development potential, A. Those are Johnny's stats. As of right now, some of them will be going up due to a few transformations or so. Now onto the story. Johnny was conflicted. He had to fight Izuku, his first true friend, in order to continue in the competition, and he knew it wasn't a coincidence. Aizawa, that mummy-looking motherfucker, had obviously put them against each other on purpose, probably to test their mental strength or some bullshit like that. Johnny gritted his teeth in anger before shaking his head. Aizawa only did it to benefit them both. Johnny understood that. But how could he beat up his best friend? Young Kujo? Johnny cast a glance behind him and saw the thin silhouette of the number one hero. Johnny turned to All Might and tried his best to give his friend's mentor a reassuring smile. But All Might was smarter than that. You aren't excited to fight young Midoriya, are you? Toshinori questioned, a knowing look in his eyes. Johnny looked down. He's my closest friend. I don't want to hurt him. You're not going to hurt him. You're going to help him. Johnny was flabbergasted. You want me to throw the fight? No, that's not what I meant. All Might frantically shook his head. I actually want you to do the opposite. You want me to beat the shit out of him? Johnny raised an eyebrow. First of all, language. Second, yes, in a sense. I don't want you to hold back. If young Midoriya is going to be my successor one day, he needs to find his drive. Challenge his resolve, Johnny, because if he can stand his ground against his friends, it will be easy to defeat his enemies. Do you understand? Johnny seemed to be deep in thought before he smirked and turned to the number one hero. Toshinori could have sworn it must have been a trick of the light, but for a second there seemed to be a flame burning in Johnny's eyes. Yeah, I understand what you are saying completely. The number one hero gave Johnny an appreciative nod before exiting the waiting room, presumably to coach Izuku. Johnny wasn't nervous anymore. If anything, he was excited. He was about to play a part in the training of the next All Might, and who knows? Maybe empowering Izuku is the mark he's going to leave on the Joestar legacy. Only the ensuing fight could decide that for sure. The arena. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a fight you all are going to love. For we are putting two stereotypes against each other in a desperate battle to see who comes out on top, Present Mike announced. They aren't stereotypes. Not everything is so black and white, Mike. Aizawa's bored voice came through the speakers. Whatever anyway. In this corner, we have Class 1A's underdog. The nerd with a death wish Izuku Midoriya. Said underdog looked as though he was going to piss himself out of sheer nervousness. Izuku was shaking harder than Johnny's insides were during the cavalry battle. And in the other corner, we have Class 1A's resident pretty boy. He's got good looks and an even better brain. It's Johnny Kujo. There was a series of shrieks and screams from the female portion of the audience. And at that moment Johnny wanted to crawl in a hole and slowly waste away. Yer days, Johnny muttered as he tried to keep his attention on his friend. In the audience, Class 1A was watching their two classmates. Man, Jojo really is a chick magnet, Kirishima noted, rubbing the back of his head. Mainta was fuming. Lucky bastard. How come he gets all the hotties? I don't know Mainta. Maybe it's because he's a decent person. Ribbit. Suyu retorted. The class perv shut up soon after that. Gyro, who was sitting next to her, shook her head. Jojo doesn't really like all that attention. He complains about it all the time. It sounds like he talks to you a lot, huh, Gyro? Mina playfully teased. Gyro's face turned beet red. Hey, don't get any funny ideas, Mina giggled. Relax, Gyro. You shouldn't take things so serious. Gyro crossed her arms and huffed. As if a guy like Jojo would end up with a girl like me anyway. We're better off as friends. Johnny began to walk around Izuku, his eyes never leaving his opponent. Izuku shuddered as his friend's stare pierced through him. He's walking like a predator that just cornered his prey. How did his personality change so fast? Izuku. Huh? Out of everyone here, I'd say I know you the best. That being said, I know that underestimating you would be a mistake. I'm not going to give you any chances. If you want to win this, you're going to fight me at my best. Izuku gulped. Is he going to go all out? I won't stand a chance. But that doesn't mean I won't try. Izuku clenched his fist and got into a fighting position, and Johnny followed suit. A head of sweat went down the greenie's head as he faced his friend. Izuku opened his mouth to say something. Next you're going to say, "Bring it on, Jojo." Bring it on, Jojo, huh? Izuku's momentary confusion lasted only a second after Johnny's fist connected with his jaw. Izuku cried out in both surprise and pain. Don't let your guard down, Johnny yelled as his friend stumbled back. Most of the students in Class 1 were shocked. Dude, he didn't even hesitate. Aren't they supposed to be friends? Kaminari asked. Yeah, Jojo just went for it. What's the deal? Uraraka said. She did not look happy. Gyro could only stare, shocked by what just occurred. That looked like Jojo put all of his weight into it. He is actually trying to hurt Midoriya. But why? Jojo always seemed so fond of him. She brought out her earphone jacks, determined to listen in. What are you up to, Jojo? Izuku rubbed his chin in stunned silence. Jojo, what are you ga? Izuku cried out again as Johnny kicked out into his side, once again with full force. Izuku was sent flying from the force of Johnny's kick, and before he could get up, Johnny was on him again in an instant, swinging his leg upwards before bringing it down like a club, aiming for Izuku's head. Izuku brought his arms up at the last second, saving himself from a concussion but getting knocked down regardless. Johnny breathed in and charged a Hammond-filled punch that went straight into Izuku's gut, causing his friend to choke on his own saliva as Johnny beat him to the ground. Suzuki performed an evasive roll, but Johnny wasn't having it, stomping on his friend's hand mid-roll. Ida's eyes were as wide as saucers as he watched the fight. He's relentless. He isn't even giving Midoriya time to think. Momo was equally as stunned. I never knew Jojo could be so aggressive. It's almost cruel. Gyro continued to listen in, desperately searching for a reason as to why her friend was showing no mercy. Jojo has to be doing this for a reason. I'm sure of it. There's no way he would just start beating the shit out of Midoriya for no reason. Izuku finally managed to distance himself from Johnny's seemingly endless barrage of attacks and stood up on his feet. The heartbreak and confusion was clear on his face. Why is he attacking me like that? Does he hate me now or something? Did I do something wrong? Did I hurt his feelings? Why is he trying to hurt me? Fight back, damn it. Izuku's thoughts were cut off by Johnny's yelling. What? Hit me now. I don't want to. I'm doing this for you, dumbass. Huh? I want you to fight back. Stop running and stand your ground. If you can't fight me, then how the hell are you going to fight people like Todoroki? People like him are willing to do just about anything to win. You know why? They have a hunger that can't be satisfied by anything other than victory. You have to be hungry, Izuku, so quit standing around and give me everything you got, or I will crush you, understand? A moment of silence passed before Izuku spoke up. Jojo. What? Izuku looked up with a wide grin. Thank you, I needed that. And with that, Izuku brought his hand up and flicked, breaking his finger but sending a massive gust of air Johnny's way. Johnny tilted his body to the side as the air bullet ripped through the front of his jacket, tearing it to shreds and revealing his muscular body. More shrieks sounded from the stands, but Johnny didn't care anymore. He turned to Izuku and smiled. Glad we understand each other. Johnny and Izuku charged towards each other. Neither of them were holding back any longer. Gyro retracted her jacks, satisfied. Then she felt a tap on her shoulder. Kyoka, your nose is bleeding. Ribbit. Tsuyu informed the rocker girl. Wash it. Gyro wiped it off with her hand, while Tsuyu cocked her head. Izuku ready to punch, and Johnny did the same. Smash. Overdrive. Their fists collided, and Johnny found his arm buckling under the force of Izuku's fist. Blood flew out of Izuku's arm as a snapping sound could be heard. But Izuku kept up the pressure, until Johnny was sent sprawling from being overpowered. Johnny looked behind him, and saw that he was hurtling towards the out of bounds. Thinking quickly, he dug his fingers into the ground and released Hammond into it, slowing his flight. Izuku charged at Johnny, before his eyes widened when he made an observation. Johnny's pant leg was significantly smaller. It looked like he was wearing half pants, half shorts, which means he had laid a Hammond string trap. Izuku, recognizing the danger of the situation, attempted to jump out of harm's way, only to feel something go taut against his leg. Johnny grabbed the golden thread and tugged with all of the Hammond in his body, only to get a surprising amount of resistance. Izuku was channeling one for all into his leg, and he was engaging his muscles to try and anchor himself. Thinking quickly, Johnny brought out Tusk and fired a nail bullet into his friend's leg, and Izuku lost his balance. With another heave, Johnny flung Izuku towards the out of bounds. It's over, Johnny thought as his friend was about to lose. That's when a loud bang was heard, and Johnny quickly turned his head, only to stare directly at Izuku Midoriya's ass as it came hurtling toward him, and then everything went black. Izuku turned around, fist raised, as he prepared to continue to fight, only to see Johnny lying motionless in the out of bounds. Midoriya wins, Midnight shouted as she raised her whip. What a stunning fight! It looks like Izuku Midoriya really doesn't want to get left behind. Present Mike announced while suppressing a laugh. If you start making butt jokes, I'll kill you. Aizawa responded. Izuku had a massive blush on his face as he ran to see if his friend was okay. Johnny's eyes fluttered open as a mix of feelings assailed him. He lost. After he tried so hard, he still lost. But he was happy that Izuku grew a pair. He glanced up and saw his friend's worried expression, and despite the feeling of disappointment that came crashing down on him, he had to smile. Good job, Johnny said simply, spitting out blood in the process. Jojo. Relax, I bit my tongue. Izuku sighed in relief. Thank you, Jojo. What you did for me. I'm hungry, Jojo. Johnny raised an eyebrow. You better be. You know how long it took me to write that speech. Izuku laughed and helped his friend up with his good hand, and Johnny put an arm around Izuku's shoulder as they made their way to Recovery Girl. Wait a second. What? You beat me with your ass. Later. Hey, Jojo. Johnny looked and saw Gyro jogging towards him. You were spitting up blood earlier, are you okay? She asked. Yeah, I bit my tongue when Izuku's ass collided with my face. That must have been an eventful visit with Recovery Girl. No. Johnny turned red and began waving his hands around. PFFT ha ha ha. Relax man, I was just joking, Gyro said. I will never suck face with an old lady. Gyro. That's disgusting. Well, consider that payback for making fun of me in that cheerleading uniform earlier. Johnny narrowed his eyes. And I gave you one of my jackets. Gyro snorted. Way too big for me. What are you, some kind of lumberjack? Johnny immediately began humming familiar tune from a certain Monty Python movie. Gyro shook her head. Dude, really? How old are you? Gramps loves that song. Gyro sighed. Well, there's a seat open next to me and Sue if you want it. Johnny smiled and walked over to their seats. Hi, Jojo. Sue said. Her eyes brightened as he sat down. Hi, Sue. How are you? Johnny asked. Fine. I was really worried during your fight with Midoriya. It was getting really intense. Johnny shrugged. Neither of us were holding back. We both wanted to win. It's just that Izuku's butt was too powerful. Gyro snorted. You know, for such an intense fight, that was a pretty funny ending. Johnny shot her a brief glare before he was suddenly hugged from behind. Johnny, Joseph Joestar bellowed as he squeezed his great-grandson. Gee, Gramps, can't breathe, Johnny choked out. Sorry, I'm just so proud of you. Jolin followed suit, a huge smile on her face. Yer dawa Johnny, I've lost a few fights every now and then, but nothing can top losing to Izuku Midoriya's ass. Johnny turned red. I'm never going to live this down, am I? Nope. Joseph, Jolin, and Gyro said at the same time, while Tsuyu sympathetically patted her friend on the shoulder. God damn it. Johnny muttered. Then another hand was placed on his shoulder, and Johnny turned to see his father. Don't listen to them, you did great, was all Jotaro had to say. Johnny felt a warm feeling blossom in his chest as he smiled at his father. Thanks, Dad. Joseph's eyebrows shot up. Oh, I almost forgot. Izuku Midoriya, said Green Boy was talking with Uraraka when he turned to face the eldest Joestar. Joseph dug around in his pocket before pulling out a leather book. Hi, I'm Joseph Joestar, but you can just call me Joseph. Izuku's eyes lit up. Oh, you're Jojo's grandpa. Yep, reminds me of when people used to call me Jojo. Anyway, Johnny said that you wanted to learn about my fight with the Pillar Men, so I took the opportunity to write it down for you. You can copy it down in your journal, or you can use this as a journal, doesn't matter to me. Izuku greedily snatched the book from Joseph. Thank you so much. I can't wait to learn about this. Joseph ripped his hat. Of course, any friend of Johnny's is a friend of mine. Izuku showed a page to Uraraka, jumping up and down with excitement. Look, there's a page on Hammond techniques. Joseph made his way back to Johnny and whispered. You're right, he is a nerd. Johnny laughed. His great-grandfather turned to Gyro. You're the young lady that Johnny teamed up with on the obstacle course, right? Gyro nodded. Joseph grinned. You two work really well together. I'm looking forward to seeing how you kids grow. Joseph Joestar, please get out of the student box. You're trespassing again. Aizawa said over the speakers, clearly tired of Joseph sneaking around. Shit. All right, Johnny. I think I've overstayed my welcome, so I'm going to head over to the hotel. Have fun with your friends. With that, Joseph sprinted out of the student box, catching dirty looks from security as he ran past. So that's where you got that from? Gyro noted. Johnny scratched his head sheepishly. I learned from the best. Jotaro sighed. Yeah, to be honest, I kind of need a break from Josuke and the others. They were hollering up a storm when you were fighting Midoriya. Well, except Rohan. He wasn't really paying attention. Jolin snorted. Pompous bastard. Gyro tilted her head, twiddling one of her jacks. How come wasn't allowed to be up here, but Jolin is? I got special permission for her. Jotaro responded. Hey, wait a minute. When were you and my sister on a first-name basis? Johnny asked, eyebrow raised. Jolin shook her finger. Your friends can be my friends too, Johnny. Yeah, Jojo, your sister's pretty cool. Gyro added. Yeah, and pretty horse smacko. You better not be talking about what I think you are, or you're a dead man. Jolin said, her green eyes filled with a murderous rage. Johnny smirked, turned to Gyro, and whispered. You see, I've got blackmail on her. Am I going to tell anybody? Or course not. But she doesn't have to know that. Gyro chuckled. She was really starting to like this family. Jolin huffed. I was sent to prison for a crime I didn't commit, and while I was in there I did something and I got caught. Unfortunately, I accidentally let it slip in front of this little shit, and now he's holding it over my head. Gyro frowned. You went to jail? That really sucks. No, what sucks is what happened after I got out. What happened? I'll explain that later in the year when we talk about Ascension stands. Jotaro interrupted. He walked over to Izuku. Midoriya, you're fighting that Shinso kid in 10 minutes. Oh crap, thanks. Izuku ran towards the preparation rooms. Johnny watched his friend go by, noticing that Izuku wasn't nearly as nervous as he was before. Gyro noticed this too. Your plan worked. Midoriya isn't freaking out anymore. Johnny nodded. He's found his resolve. He isn't going to hold back. I'm actually pretty excited for him. I can't wait to see what he's going to do. Later. Holy shit. Johnny fought to stay in his seat as a massive shockwave threatened to send him flying. Izuku said something to Todoroki, and the stoic boy finally used his fire. Then the two boys had collided with their quirks, causing a massive explosion. Johnny managed to stay in his seat, and he could only stare in disbelief when Izuku slumped over, unconscious. Well, looks like he has to root for Takoyami. Even later. Fuck. Guess what? Even later than before. Okay, Katsuki won. Johnny's disappointment was immeasurable. He had honestly hoped somebody would take the explosive blonde down a few pegs. But that didn't happen. Now he was spazzing out on the first place podium. The asshole wasn't even satisfied with first place. Oh well, Johnny was sure he'd get his comeuppance eventually. Everyone started to head home, and Johnny bid his friends farewell. You know, despite almost plummeting to my death, I had a lot of fun today. Gyro commented. Yeah, me too. Gyro smiled and waved. See you tomorrow, Jojo. Johnny raised a hand in response, and noticed his father waiting for him. As Johnny walked over to meet up with Jotaro, he failed to notice something. One crucial moment is all it takes for something to go horribly wrong, and if Johnny had been paying attention, he might have noticed the barrel of a sniper rifle aimed right at him. John Gallier fiddled with the trigger. He needed to make sure that Jotaro wasn't looking before he took the shot. The blind sniper smirked. See him tomorrow, eh? We'll see about that. America is the best. The blonde took a deep breath, taking in the view. The vast desert was beautiful in a sense. The way the tumbleweeds rolled around on the ground had a sort of perfection to it. He shook his head. It was beautiful, sure, but there was no way it could compare to the serene waters of Venezia. The Italian grabbed his hat and brushed off some sand. He took a seat on a boulder as he stared at the rocks he had been practicing on. He had made several dents in the cliffside, and now it looked like Swiss cheese. Cheese. The Italian's stomach growled, and he reluctantly got up, wincing from the pain his training caused him. But it was necessary, for that little boy's sake. The Italian made his way into town and saw a restaurant that had chicken parmesan for its specials. The thought of the warm, creamy melted parmesan covering the tender chicken made him even hungrier. The Italian chuckled to himself. Nyo-ho. Jotaro watched his son as he waved goodbye to Gyro and Midoriya. Johnny was starting to build his own little inner circle, just as every JoJo has done before him. It was comforting to see his son with friends like those too. The kid usually hid in his room and only socialized with family. Johnny seemed like a sociable kid on the outside, but Jotaro knew Johnny had trouble making friends. Not to mention that girls were constantly chasing him over his looks, as they had with Jotaro. The reason both Jotaro and Johnny hate that so much is because they have no idea whether people are being genuine or not. But Johnny seemed to have made some good friends. His son walked up to him with one of the biggest smiles he has had in a long time. You're in a good mood. Jotaro noted. Johnny raised an eyebrow. You're one to talk. I'm starting to see the beginnings of one of your rare smiles. Jotaro tried his best to remain aloof, but he had to give in, a soft grin coming across his face. I guess that's just pride. I'm just glad you turned out to be a good kid. Johnny beamed with pride at his father's words. While they were brief, as Jotaro typically was, he had made his father proud. Jotaro tilted his head, indicating that he wanted Johnny to walk with him. Johnny obliged, taking his place by his father's side. You know, I couldn't help but notice you were fighting a bit like Gramps during your match with Midoriya. Jotaro said. Yeah, but he taught me. Why wasn't I going to use his moves? Johnny questioned. Jotaro sighed. I'm not saying you can't, Johnny. I'm saying you should take what he taught you and make it your own. You're not Gramps, and he doesn't want you to be. That goes for me too. I don't really understand. Be you, Johnny. Trying to be like someone else isn't healthy, trust me. Take Midoriya for example. He's trying to fight like All Might, and it's hurting him. And while using Hammon isn't going to hurt you, you're going to inevitably make comparisons that could hurt your self-esteem. Unless you make it your own. Come up with your own moves, your own tactics, got it? Johnny stared at the ground. His father wasn't wrong, except he had already begun making those comparisons. How could he ever measure up to the Joestars before him, with his weak-ass stand and mediocre Hammon? He had trained hard, desperately trying to make Tusk stronger, but to no avail. And his Hammon, while passable, was nowhere near the power of Joseph's. Izuku overpowered him, almost instantly, and then he outsmarted him on top of that. Johnny didn't want to admit it, but he was jealous of his formerly quirkless friend. He wasn't jealous to the point that he wasn't proud of Izuku, but some small part of him wished that he had won for all. Johnny blinked. I really shouldn't think things like that. Izuku deserves that quirk more than anyone. Still, he has a lot more luck on his side than I do. Right then, a small PFFT noise was heard, and Jotaro swiveled his head in concern. Johnny, be careful. I just heard something strange. Johnny's eyebrows raised as he too began to look around. What's wrong? Are we under attack or something? Jotaro squinted, and Star Platinum materialized beside him. Its eyes' pupils were dilating as it tried to spot the source of the noise. And then Stand and User saw something that made their blood run cold. On one of the rooftops, a man stood with a sniper rifle aimed at the father and son, its barrel already smoking. His pinkish hair and lack of pupils was a dead giveaway, as well as his choice of weaponry. Jean Gallier, Jotaro muttered darkly. What? Isn't that the guy who got Jolin framed for murder? Johnny stammered out. Yeah, but he's supposed to be dead. It doesn't matter, he already fired off a shot. He appears to have a silencer. That was the noise I heard. We need to find cover, and fast. About the hole, he already fired off a shot thing. Yeah? I think I know what he hit. Johnny sounded like he was on the verge of panic. Jotaro glanced at his son, and froze. Johnny was on his knees, clutching at his back. He shakily brought up his hand, revealing that it was covered in blood. Jotaro's pupils shrank to the size of pins as he could only stare at his wounded son. Dad, I'm sorry. Johnny managed to get out, before collapsing to the ground. His father still couldn't process what had happened, until it finally hit Jotaro like a truck. Johnny, ye! Jotaro screamed as he ran toward his son, scooping him up in a protective embrace as Star Platinum deflected another shot from the blind sniper. Tears were streaming down the elder Kujo's face as he tried to formulate a plan. I'm going to murder that bastard, but saving Johnny is more important right now. Star Platinum, the world. Jotaro shouted as his stand brought time to a halt. Jotaro carried his son around a corner into an alleyway, jumping into a dumpster for cover. Time resumed, and Jean Gallier shook his head. Running from me. Is this really the same man who defeated Lord Dia? Jotaro's breathing became labored as he pulled out his phone. He needed backup. While he was powerful enough to handle the sniper on his own, that would mean leaving Johnny behind, and that was not happening. Plus, The sniper was making a point to stay out of Jotaro's range, so even if he stopped time, he wouldn't be able to make it, and Johnny would be a sitting duck. The big question is, who to call? Jolin. Jotaro shook his head. There was no way he was putting both of his kids in danger. Gramps. No. While the old man is certainly capable of fighting, mobility wasn't his strong suit. Josuke. He was already on the train back to Moria. That left one option. Jotaro quickly pulled up Giorno's contact information and sent him their location, just as a bullet slammed into the dumpster beside Jotaro's head. Jotaro felt a burning sensation on the left side of his head and brought his hand up, only to feel what was undoubtedly blood. That bastard just shot part of his ear off. Giorno, please understand the message. Johnny is counting on you. Jotaro thought as he brought his stand out to defend. Giorno Giovanna was approaching his private jet. Ever since he had become the boss of Passion, he had some very handy tools at his disposal. The door opened up to reveal a man with a black and purple hat that had an arrow pointing down to his forehead. He was carrying a turtle, and said turtle was gazing at Giorno with a pleased expression. These two men, Guido Mista and Jean-Pierre Polnareff, were the people that he trusted the most. Mista, Polnareff, good to see you too. Mista grinned at the sight of his best friend. Giorno, how was the sports festival? Yes, more importantly, how did my godson do? Polnareff chimed in, sunny as usual. He did fantastic. I'd say he'd even give Mr. Joestar a run for his money. Giorno replied. The turtle ghost let out a hearty laugh. That's good to hear. Mista put a hand on his friend's shoulder. Well, I hope you enjoyed your vacation, because it's about time to get back to work. The Yakuza have been selling quirk-enhancing drugs in Venezia, and it's been pretty hard trying to bust them. Just the other day, Fugo and I tried to take one of their warehouses. It was pretty easy to take the hat guys out with purple haze, but the crates were just full of cannellis. Let me guess you ate them. Of course we did. Why wouldn't we? Giorno chuckled at his friend's antics, before getting a buzz from his phone. Giorno frowned as he stared at the screen. Jotaro just sent me a location with no context. Polnareff shared Giorno's frown. That isn't like Jotaro to do that. Usually he gives you an explanation. He could be in trouble. But Giorno apparently already figured that out, because he was gone. Aura, 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 aura. Star Platinum bellowed as it deflected a hailstorm of bullets away from the father and son. Johnny was still out cold, and he was losing blood fast. Jotaro grunted as a bullet found a way past his defenses and hit him in the shoulder. Giorno, where are you? Jotaro thought as he struggled to deflect the bullets. Jongali A had switched to a submachine gun and was pelting them with heavy fire. While Star Platinum usually had no problem handling weapons of this caliber, Jotaro wasn't only protecting himself. Your son seems to be holding you back, Jotaro. Why don't you forget about him and face me? He's better off dead anyway. Jotaro gritted his teeth. There was no way this asshole was going to tempt him into leaving his son. Fuck you, Jotaro replied swiftly, before something landed in the dumpster. It was a live grenade. Star Platinum, the world. Jotaro stopped time just as the grenade was going off. He scooped up his son as he tried to escape the range of the explosion. But when time resumed, the shockwave was enough to knock Jotaro over, since he was carrying extra weight. Johnny flew away, landing about 5 meters from Jotaro. The sniper readied his gun and fired at the unconscious Joestar. No! Jotaro bellowed as he jumped in front of it, the bullet heading straight for his face. I'm sorry, Johnny. Let me be a good father to you, just this once. Jotaro was prepared for death, but then the bullet stopped right in front of his face, before going backwards. What? John Gillier said in disbelief as the bullet went back into his gun. Jotaro's body began to rewind itself back to before he jumped, and the sniper realized what was happening. but he realized it too late. The sniper swiveled around, only to come face to face with a gold-plated fist. Muta 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 muta. Gold Experience Requiem cried as it pummeled the sniper to the ground. Giorno punched John Gallier right off the building, watching Dio's servant plummet to the ground and land on a parked car, crushing the roof. The Italian mafia boss then ran over to his wounded nephew and quickly began to heal his wounds. Jotaro limped over. "Thank you. I was afraid you wouldn't have understood." Giorno nodded. "You aren't the type to provide no context, so I knew something was wrong." Giorno brought a hand up to his nephew's face. "He'll be all right." I replenished his blood and closed the wound. Jotaro sighed in relief before the Requiem stand spoke up. "I'm sorry to tell you this, but I was unable to heal the spine." Both Giorno and Jotaro stared at the sentient stand. "Why not?" they both asked at the same time. "Something was blocking my power. I'm just as confused as you are," it responded. Then chuckling was heard from the wreckage of the car as John Gallier sat himself up. Manhattan Transfer, Act 2. The blob-like stand appeared next to its wounded user. It does the same thing as the original, but with an added twist. The first shot that I fire in battle will cancel out healing abilities. That's why I aimed for the back, just in case I lost. I wanted you to feel the pain I felt when you murdered Lord Dio, and now your son can kiss his hero career goodbye. The sniper began cackling. "I don't care if you kill me, because I still won. I hope you plunge into the depths of despair, as I did. If something ever happened to you, or any of our family members for that matter, I don't know what I would do." Now Giorno knew. "WRRRIA." Giorno screamed as Jur began beating the sniper into the ground. John Gallier attempted to roll out of the way, only to stop at an enraged Star Platinum. "Aura, aura, aura, aura." The two stands just beat on the sniper, no mercy, only rage. Fists came up and down, over and over again, and they only stopped when Dio's servant was a pile of flesh and bone. Giorno fell to his knees, physically and emotionally drained, and watched as the corpse faded away. "Say hi to Diavolo for me, you piece of shit." Giorno spat on the ground where Jean Gallier was before turning towards his nephew, and he froze. Jotaro was holding on to Johnny tighter than Joseph's pants, and he was sobbing. Jotaro Kujo, the kick-ass delinquent who beat the ultimate evil, the guide and inspiration to future Joestars, the man who stared death in the face countless times without blinking, was sobbing. They were quiet. Even in his grief, Jotaro is still reserved. But the strongest man he had ever known was crying. At that moment, Giorno knew. Jotaro wasn't the hero who beat Dio anymore. He was a father who was going through every parent's worst nightmare. After years and years of being the strong central pillar that everyone could rely on, Jotaro Kujo had finally broke. Johnny opened his eyes. He was in a hospital room by the looks of it, and the first thing he noticed was that his sister was sitting next to him. "Jolin," she whipped around at the sound of her name. "Johnny, you're awake." Jolin wrapped her brother in a hug, surprising him. "Geez, Jolin, knock it off. What happened?" "You were shot, dumbass." Johnny shook his head. "I know that, but what about Dad? Is he okay? Did we win?" Jolin shook her head. "He's a mess. He isn't hurt, but he isn't taking this very well. I think this is the first time I have ever seen him cry." "Wait, Dad was crying." "Yeah, he isn't doing very well. I'm going to see him." Johnny attempted to get up. "Johnny, why?" Johnny toppled to the floor. "What?" He tried to get up, but found that he could only support his torso. Then it dawned on him, and he glanced back at his useless legs in horror. I can't move my legs." Jolin picked him up and put him back on the bed, but her brother appeared to be in shock. Why can't I move my legs, Jolin?" Tears formed in the corners of Jolin's eyes as she embraced her brother again. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She kept repeating over and over again as she squeezed him, desperately trying to console him. But for Johnny, everything had come crashing down. He stayed silent, tears streaming down his face as his sister sobbed into his shoulder. Everything he had ever worked for. It was all for nothing. Johnny was half asleep when a presence in the room woke him from his stupor. Jolin had left to get a snack for him, so he had assumed she had returned. It wasn't until he actually looked that he saw who it was. Tenya Ida stood in the doorway, and to say the engine quirk user was shocked would be an understatement. "Jojo," Ida asked quietly. "Oh, hi, Ida. I'm not surprised you're here first, considering how dedicated you are." Ida continued to stare. "Jojo, I had no idea you were here. I was just walking past when I saw you." Johnny raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you here?" "My brother was attacked by a villain. I'm here for him." "Oh well, me and your brother are in the same boat, I guess." "What?" Johnny put a hand to his head. Yeah. I was attacked on the way home. One of my dad's old enemies decided to target me." "I'm so sorry. When are you going to be back in class?" Ida asked hopefully. Johnny looked down, biting his lip to try and hold back tears. "I'm not coming back, Ida." What? "My legs don't work anymore. I can't be a hero in my condition." Ida stood frozen in the doorway. Judging from his face, he looked utterly devastated. Then it contorted into anger, and Johnny watched as Ida punched the wall with astounding force. "This is bullshit." Johnny was even further taken aback by Ida's choice of language. "What is my life? My brother and my friend both crippled on the same day." Ida realized that he was making a scene and tried his best to compose himself. "Sorry, Jojo, it's just no need. You must be going through a lot right now." "I'm sorry I added on to that." No. It's not your fault. I'm just having a really bad day today. I just can't believe I'm not going to see you in class." "Me too. I'm really going to miss you guys." "Well, you're still going to be in town, right?" Johnny remained silent. And that was all the answer Ida needed to know what was going on. "Your father is sending you back to America, isn't he?" Johnny nodded. "He said it was for my safety. I don't know when I'm coming back. Might never see you guys again." Johnny was tearing up again. Ida shook his head. "I don't accept that. I'm contacting all of our classmates, and we are each going to take a turn giving you our contact information. Friends stick together, even if they are a continent away. I will go first." Ida snatched Johnny's phone and entered his number before handing it back to the paraplegic. Johnny looked at the phone and then at Ida and managed to let out a weak smile. "Thank you." Ida bowed his head and walked out of the room briskly, almost bumping into Jolin on his way out. His sister re-entered the room carrying a good tray, a puzzled expression on her face. "Was that the kid that was used as an advertisement during the sports festival?" she asked, pointing her thumb in his direction. "Ida, yeah, his brother was hurt, and he happened to see me in here." Jolin hummed thoughtfully. "That's nice of him." "Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of visitors." That was exhausting. Every single one of his classmates said something like, "I'm sorry," or "I'll miss you," or "crippled bitch." Okay, the last one was just Katsuki, but he actually showed up, so Johnny had to admit it was progress. Then came Izuku. Never before had he seen Izuku so upset. Sure, he was a bit of a crybaby, but this was a whole new level of despair. What about our dream, Jojo? We were going to be heroes together," Izuku said through his sobs. "I'm afraid it's just your dream now. I can't be a part of it anymore. But I said it before, and I'll say it again. I believe in you. I always knew you were going to be a hero, Izuku. But now, I know that you're going to be the best." Jojo. Izuku cried out as he embraced his childhood friend. Johnny held him tight, feeling no shortage of pain at the prospect of saying goodbye to Izuku once more. Inko Midoriya stood in the doorway, and she was crying herself, having to witness her son say goodbye to his closest friend for what may be the final time. She felt a tap on her shoulder and saw a blond man with a face remarkably similar to Johnny's smiling at her. "Mrs. Midoriya, I'm Giorno Giovanna, Johnny's uncle. I don't mean to be rude, but after this can I talk with your son?" "Oh, pleased to meet you. And yes, you can." Giorno offered a quick nod as thanks and turned his attention to the scene unfolding in front of him. "They really are pretty close, aren't they?" Inko nodded. Izuku was so happy that Johnny was back in his life. "I don't know how he's going to handle it." Giorno furrowed his eyebrows as he watched the two friends separate, and Izuku reluctantly made his way over. "To be honest, I don't know how I'm going to handle it either." "What is it, Mr. Giovanna?" "No need for pleasantries. Call me Giorno." Izuku nodded. "Sure, Mr. Giorno." Giorno chuckled at the boy's dorkiness. "I'm here to discuss One for All." Izuku's eyebrows raised. "You know about it too?" Giorno nodded. "Every member of the Joestar family knows Midoriya. So if you ever need help, and there is a Joestar around, you know what to do." "Thanks, sir. Anyway, since Johnny is no longer going to be around to help you hide Ofa, he is going to appoint someone else. Someone he trusts. I don't know who it is going to be, but they will reveal themselves to you in time. So someone still has my back." "Yep. I would keep an eye out for anybody that seems to be covering for you, just to know who your friends are." "I will." The Italian nodded and walked back to the waiting rooms. The next step on his list: try and get Jotaro out of the rut he was stuck in. Johnny didn't even need to look to know who was visiting him now. "Hey, Gyro." The perplet was speechless. She honestly didn't know what to say. One minute you're saying goodbye to your closest friend, and the next he's in the hospital with a debilitating back injury, and you're rushing as fast as you can to go see him. And when you finally do, he looks awful. Gyro cleared her throat. How are you? How are you, really, Kyoka?" "It's obvious he isn't doing well." Johnny let out a weak laugh. "You aren't used to seeing me like this, huh?" Gyro shook her head. "Of course I'm not. I don't like seeing you like this. Crippled? Defeated? You look like you've given up." "Well, I have." Gyro was taken aback. He said that as if it wasn't a big deal. "I can't believe this." "Why?" Johnny motioned to his legs. "Do you have eyes? What's the fucking point? I'm done, finished. There is absolutely no way I could ever hope to be worth anything now." "No, Jojo, don't say stuff like that." "Why not? It's true, isn't it? I'm useless. This injury that I've got, it's just karma for being stupid enough to believe I had a chance." "You aren't useless." "Yes, I am. Mother knows best, right?" Johnny paused. He shouldn't have said that. Gyro's eyes were as wide as saucers. She said that to you?" Her voice had gone soft, a mix of shock and horror on her face. Jolin, who had unraveled her ear using Stone Free and was listening in, gritted her teeth in anger. "That bitch." Johnny looked down. "I spent my whole life trying to prove her wrong, but I ended up doing the opposite. I was an idiot, thinking I could be like my dad." "Jojo, please stop. I mean, just look at Tusk. It couldn't even take a single jab from an earphone jack. You were already so much better than me." "Jojo, please. My luck is shit. It's always been shit. Just when everything started looking up for me, it all come crashing down all around me. This always happens to me. I get my hopes up, and they're always crushed. Maybe I would have been better off if Jean Gallier aimed for the he." Johnny was cut off by a fist colliding with his jaw. He fell back, clutching at his jaw, his eyes wide with shock as he stared at Gyro. "Stop it. Don't you ever say that shit in front of me again, understand?" Johnny could only stare as his friend began to break down. Tears were now freely flowing down her normally aloof face. "Stop calling yourself useless. Did you forget that you saved my life? Who helped me train for the sports festival? Who has been helping me feel better about myself? Who has been encouraging me non-stop ever since we became friends? You. And for you to go and call yourself useless, after everything that you have done for me." Gyro wiped her face, sniffling. "I can't stand it." Johnny rubbed his face. I'm sorry. I didn't actually mean the headshot thing." That's when he felt her arms wrap around him, and Gyro rested her chin on his shoulder. "Don't apologize. Just remember that you are worth a lot more than you think. You're the closest friend I've had in a long time. Don't forget that. It doesn't matter if you lost your legs or not, because you're rockin' either way. You're still JoJo, so don't give up. Don't throw away your shot, JoJo." Johnny couldn't hold it in anymore. He returned the embrace and sobbed. All the pent-up frustration, everything his mother did, his hopes and dreams coming to a grinding halt, but most importantly leaving his friends, came gushing out of his tear ducts as he clung to the teenaged musician. And Gyro just held him. At that moment, she was his shoulder to cry on. Thank you, Gyro," Johnny said shakily. "Kyoka Jojo. Call me Kyoka. I think you've earned that. Okay, Kyoka." Jolin put her ear back into place. That girl was amazing. Arguably one of the best things to happen to her brother in a long time. And he was probably never going to see her again. And then there was what Johnny said about their mother. Their mother hurt Johnny, that was a fact. But Johnny had internalized what she said to him. Her brother was not useless. Not now, not ever. Jolin passed by a trash can, and she caught a glimpse of something blue inside. Jolin peeked inside, and she saw something that made her feel 10 times worse. It was Johnny's hero costume. He had thrown it out. The blue trench coat was torn to shreds, clearly in a fit of pain and rage. Jolin reached inside and felt cool metal brush her fingers. Sleeping her hand around the metal, Jolin pulled out the horseshoe that was normally attached to Johnny's belt. Jolin stared at the horseshoe, a flood of memories coming back to her. Just a few months ago, she watched Johnny participate in a horse race, and he did fantastic. Jolin pocketed the horseshoe and walked off to join her father. "I'm really going to miss you," Kyoka said. She was sitting on the side of Johnny's hospital bed, hands clasped together. "Ditto," Kyoka snorted. "We're in the middle of an emotional farewell, and all you can say is ditto." Johnny gave her a half-hearted shrug. "I'm not really good with this kind of stuff." Johnny seemed to be deep in thought before he finally spoke up. "I was going to have an internship with the Speedwagon Foundation." Kyoka glanced at him, and he was looking at her with a thoughtful expression. I think I want you to have it." Kyoka's eyes widened. "Jojo, you can't just give. They wanted you too, but they didn't have another spot. Until one opened pretty recently." Kyoka glanced down. I don't know. I'll have to think about it." "Well, if you want to be a good hero, this is an opportunity I wouldn't pass up. The hero I was going to work with is the best of the best. And he said your earphone jacks were really impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if he already had a few ideas on how you could improve." "Jojo, sometimes I just don't understand you." "You've done so much for me, and I'm grateful and all. But why me in particular? Why offer me your internship? What did I do to deserve this?" Johnny scratched the back of his head. I realized that you and I had the same problem. Sure, my problems are a bit more complicated than yours, but I knew what it felt like. When you told me about the bullying, I could understand exactly what you were going through, because I've been going through the same thing since I was a little kid. I guess I thought, if I could help you, Then maybe there would be some hope for me. Kyoka shook her head. This kind of stuff goes both ways, Jojo. You can't do all these nice things for me and expect me not to return your kindness. Now that I know how you feel, I'm going to help you as much as I can. Remember, you have my number, so I'll take that internship. If you promise that you will call me if you have a problem. Got it? Johnny nodded. I'll try my best, but I'm a real piece of work, so you'll have to be patient with me. That's another thing we have in common. The two teens laughed. Johnny felt like a bit of weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Kyoka just had that effect on him. It was bizarre. They started off disliking each other, and now Johnny just couldn't bring himself to say goodbye. Kyoka, if I never see you again. Nope, you're not allowed to say that. You are. It doesn't matter how long you are in America. We'll find a way. Friends always do. This isn't goodbye, it's I'll see you after an undetermined amount of time. Johnny chuckled. All right, I can accept that. Kyoka got up. Well, I'm sure there are people waiting to see you, and I don't want to hold them up. Stay in touch, all right? You can count on it. Johnny smiled. Kyoka pulled him in for another hug, which he returned, and walked out the door, giving Johnny one last reassuring smile before exiting the room. Wait, Kyoka, said girl stuck her head back in. Yeah? I might need you to do something for me, something important. Kyoka nodded. Sure, what is it? Johnny looked her dead in the eye. His face had become serious. What I'm about to say can't leave this room. You see, when I entered UA, I was given a task to complete. Since I'm leaving, I can't do it anymore, so you want me to finish it? Yeah, I think I should tell you about one for all. Johnny wheeled towards his great-grandfather, and the first thing he noticed was the old man's somber expression. Joseph looked at Johnny. I always wanted you to come back and visit me, but not like this. Johnny looked down, his eyebrows connecting at the top. That makes two of us. Johnny. Johnny turned to see his father walking towards him. Jotaro's hat was off, revealing his graying hair. Jolin was walking by his side, carrying a big bag over Stone-Free's shoulder. Jotaro walked up and pulled his son in for a hug. I'm sorry, Johnny, I failed you. No, you didn't. Jotaro let out a dry chuckle. I just wanted to let you know. I'm not pushing you away. I made that mistake once, and I'm not doing that again. You're going to come back, Johnny, I promise. Once I'm sure it is safe, I'll pick you up right away. Johnny nodded. He felt a little better. It wasn't permanent. He would come back home. Jolin tossed something in his lap, and Johnny looked to see his horseshoe. You really thought you could leave without your lucky horseshoe? Johnny picked it up. You know my balls still work thanks to Uncle Giorno, right? If you had thrown it a bit farther, it would have been hilarious. Jolin proceeded to throw the entire bag at him, knocking his wheelchair over. Gah, Jolin. Presents from your classmates, Jotaro said. Oh. Johnny opened the bag and found a lot of assorted items, but one stood out in particular. Johnny reached inside and pulled it out. It was a light blue beanie, covered in purple stars. There was a note attached to it, which read, Jojo, I just wanted to say thanks again for everything. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You've inspired me to be better. I may not be all that confident in myself, but I can tell that you set me on the right path. You're a hero, Jojo, because you helped save me from myself. So, I thought I'd get you something to say thank you. And don't worry about Midoriya. I'll take good care of him. I think it fits your style. It can go with your pajamas. Don't forget, you promised to call me. So if you don't, I'll kill you. Thanks for everything. Kyoka. Johnny smiled and slipped the hat on. He then took the horseshoe and clipped it on the front. Jolin smiled. Looks good on you. Joseph opened the door to the Speedwagon Foundation plans they were taking. A ramp descended downwards. We better get going. Johnny saved to his father and sister as he wheeled himself into the plane, and they waved back, with Jotaro shedding another tear at his son's departure. I'll make everything better, so you can come back. I promise. Johnny was sitting next to Joseph, browsing on his phone. He was scrolling through the news section. Apparently some guy named Funny Valentine was elected president. That's when something caught his eye. Steel Ball Run. The Steel Ball Run is an ambitious project that involves a race across America. Jockeys from all over the world are competing for $10 million. There is a $250 entrance fee for all interested. Johnny didn't understand, but he felt drawn to this race. Hey Gramps, can you sign me up for something?